In the misty Highlands, life often moved to the rhythm of caution, and the grandeur of the landscape belied the quiet tensions that simmered beneath the surface. Though the rolling hills, heather-covered moors, and glinting streams seemed serene, they were witness to a reality far more turbulent. Across the generations, rivalries between clans had burned like slow fires, passed down with stories of old grievances, blood debts, and perceived slights. In medieval Scotland, these feuds were not mere tales of violence. They shaped the very essence of daily life, dictating behavior, choices, and survival. A village in the shadow of the mountains was as much a fortress as it was a home. Simple stone cottages with thatched roofs dotted the green valleys, but within these homes, the sense of vulnerability was constant. Families awoke before dawn, not just to tend livestock or fields, but to ensure that watchful eyes guarded against sudden raids. Each household, regardless of wealth, participated in the intricate dance of caution. Children were taught to move silently. Messengers rode swiftly between settlements, and every visitor, however familiar, was met with a degree of suspicion. The past was never forgotten, and the consequences of inattention were measured in blood. Central to these feuds were the clans themselves. Each clan, bound by lineage, loyalty, and the promise of shared defense, was a living organism, with every member playing a critical role. Chiefs were both leaders and symbols, embodying the honor and pride of their people. They negotiated, judged disputes, and, when diplomacy failed, led men into battle. Young men were trained in the arts of war, almost from boyhood, learning to wield claymores and spears, to ride and track, to strike with precision while maintaining the discipline required of a disciplined warrior. Even the women, often left behind during raids or campaigns, developed resilience and resourcefulness. They fortified homes, safeguarded supplies, and sometimes played active roles in organizing defenses or negotiating truces. The Highlanders knew that survival required everyone's participation, and even the humblest villager carried the weight of the clan's honor. The feuds themselves could seem endless to an outsider. Disputes over land, cattle, marriage, or honor spiraled into generations of retaliation. A minor affront in one era might resurface decades later, justified as a continuation of an unfinished story of revenge. These rivalries were deeply personal, intertwining the sacred and the profane, loyalty and vengeance. Families memorized the names and faces of enemies, teaching the young to recognize both friend and foe. The knowledge of past wrongs, combined with a sense of inherited duty, meant that even the simplest interactions carried undercurrents of suspicion. One famous example of this enduring cycle of violence was the feud between Clan MacLeod and Clan MacDonald. These rival families, rooted in the Western Isles, engaged in skirmishes, cattle raids, and retaliatory attacks over centuries. A stolen cow or a slight to a clan chief could escalate quickly, and the repercussions were rarely limited to the parties directly involved. The villagers of the region knew that neutrality was often impossible. Supporting the wrong side, or failing to act, could bring ruin. Life in these lands was a constant negotiation with risk. Every decision was weighed against the potential for conflict, and even moments of celebration were tinged with awareness of vulnerability. Yet, for all the danger, the clan system offered a form of stability amidst uncertainty. While the rivalries brought hardship, they also created a structure of protection and belonging. A member of a clan knew that they were part of something larger than themselves, a network of individuals bound by blood and loyalty. In times of attack or famine, the clan provided support, ensuring that no member faced disaster alone. The shared responsibility and solidarity were as vital to survival as any weapon or fortified home. It was within this delicate balance of risk and security that the Scots lived, loved, and persevered. The daily routines of villagers reflected this careful balancing act. Farmers worked diligently, tending fields with awareness of the seasons and potential threats. Shepherds guided flocks along hidden paths to avoid exposure, while smiths and craftsmen produced weapons and tools crucial for defense. Markets were not just places of commerce, but arenas where alliances and rivalries were quietly negotiated. Every interaction, even a simple trade, carried implications for the clan's status and future. Trust was earned and rarely given freely, and rumors could be as dangerous as swords. Amidst the tension, there were moments of profound humanity. Even in a society shaped by feud and vigilance, weddings, festivals, and religious observances offered respite. Communities gathered in kirks or around fires, singing and celebrating, passing down stories that blended history and myth. These shared experiences reinforced identity and connection, providing psychological shelter against the ceaseless demands of honor and duty. Children played in the shadow of the mountains, unaware of the intricate web of allegiances they would inherit, while elders shared tales of courage, cunning, and the cost of pride. The rhythms of nature, harvests, snowfalls, and solstices, offered structure to life, a reminder that the land itself held sway over human ambition. Yet the shadows of rivalry were never far. Even during peaceful seasons, villagers moved cautiously, aware that a single misstep could reignite hostilities. Chiefs negotiated temporary truces, with careful words and oaths, knowing that honor could be upheld or shatter with a single decision. Alliances were fragile and ever shifting. A friend today might become a foe tomorrow. These dynamics created a culture of vigilance and cunning, where the sharp mind was as important as the strong arm. In this world of beauty and danger, the Highlands shaped character and forged resilience. Life demanded courage not just in battle, but in daily existence. Facing the unpredictability of nature, the threat of disease, and the enduring weight of human ambition. Those who survived and thrived did so through loyalty, wisdom, and the ability to navigate the complex interplay of honor, duty, and personal survival. As the night descends and mists curl around the glens, one can almost hear the echoes of the past. The distant clash of swords, the murmur of councils, the stories of families bound together by pride and circumstance. It is a reminder that the Highlands were not merely a picturesque landscape, but a living testament to human endurance, where the lessons of rivalry, loyalty, and survival continue to resonate across time. Here, in the shadows of Scotland's mountains and moors, we glimpse the human spirit tested by adversity, strengthened by solidarity, and tempered by centuries of challenge. Even as sleep draws over our own eyes, the lives of these Highlanders linger in the mind, reminding us that beauty and brutality, loyalty and vengeance, often walk hand in hand. The silhouette of a stone castle, rising above the misty Highland hills, was a symbol of authority, protection, and power. From afar, these fortresses seemed majestic, their towers reaching skyward, their walls impenetrable. Yet beneath their shadow lay the lives of both the noble and the common folk, intertwined in a delicate balance of hierarchy, obligation, and survival. The contrast between the opulent halls of lords and the humble cottages of peasants was stark. Yet the rhythms of life bound them together in ways that were subtle, complex, and enduring. Nobles lived in a world that balanced ceremony with strategy. The laird or lord of a castle was responsible not only for his own wealth and comfort, but also for the welfare of those under his protection. A lord's authority extended across his lands, influencing the lives of villagers, craftsmen, and soldiers alike. He presided over disputes, ensured that rents and tributes were collected, and maintained alliances through marriages, favors, or oaths. A castle's great hall echoed with the clatter of feasts, discussions of strategy, and the occasional clash of tempers. Yet behind the grandeur lurked the pressures of expectation. Nobles were constantly aware that a misstep, whether in diplomacy, leadership, or martial prowess, could erode their power and invite rival clans or ambitious neighbors to challenge their authority. Daily life for a lord began before sunrise. Matters of estate management, military readiness, and legal affairs occupied much of the morning, followed by training in arms or strategy in preparation for conflicts that could erupt at any moment. Lords were expected to embody the virtues of strength, wisdom, and justice. Yet beneath these expectations, isolation was common. The nobility, though surrounded by retainers and advisors, often experienced the loneliness of responsibility. Every decision carried consequences, not only for themselves, but also for the lives of countless others. The weight of legacy and honor rested heavily on their shoulders, shaping their every waking moment. Within the castle, women of the noble class navigated a complex social landscape. Ladies oversaw household management, supervised servants, and ensured that traditions and ceremonies were maintained. They educated children, managed provisions, and sometimes wielded influence over political or military decisions, subtly shaping the course of clan fortunes. The lives of noble women were a delicate balance between duty, family, and survival, requiring intelligence, patience, and resilience. Though outwardly they might appear sheltered, their contributions were vital, and their actions could ripple across the entire clan's fate. Below the walls, the peasants' world was far more immediate and tangible. Their lives were defined by labor, the changing seasons, and the constant vigilance demanded by the feuds and natural hazards of the Highlands. Farmers rose with the sun, tending crops and livestock, ensuring that the food supply remained sufficient for both their families and their lords. They repaired fences, cleared fields, and harvested under the watchful eyes of the local steward, or reeve, who reported back to the lord. Peasants worked not only to sustain their households, but also to meet obligations imposed by the castle, from tributes in grain or labor to service in times of conflict. Yet despite these obligations, peasant communities held their own culture, traditions, and resilience. The bonds of family, kinship, and neighborly cooperation were central to survival. Villagers shared knowledge, resources, and labor, creating a social fabric that allowed them to endure adversity. Even amidst harsh conditions, music, storytelling, and celebration provided relief from the burdens of daily toil. Children learned both work and law from an early age, absorbing the lessons of survival, honor, and community that would guide them throughout their lives. The relationship between nobles and peasants was complicated, often defined by mutual dependence, occasionally by tension or resentment. Lords needed the labor, loyalty, and support of the villagers, while peasants relied on the lord's protection and arbitration in disputes. Feudal obligations created a hierarchy that dictated behavior, but within these structures, personal relationships, local alliances, and practical considerations allowed flexibility and negotiation. A lord who treated his people fairly could expect loyalty and service, while oppressive rule could lead to unrest, flight, or rebellion. The balance was delicate, and the margins for error were small. Castles were also centers of military organization, where retainers and soldiers were trained, armed, and readied for conflict. Warfare was an ever-present concern, whether defending against rival clans, asserting dominance or responding to invasions from the south. Peasants could be called upon to serve in these campaigns, adding to the layers of responsibility and risk that defined daily life. The preparation for conflict extended beyond the physical. Intelligence gathering, alliances, and diplomacy were crucial in maintaining power and security. Every household, noble or common, was part of this complex ecosystem, contributing to the clan's resilience and ability to survive in a perilous world. Religious observance was another unifying force between nobility and peasantry. Churches and chapels, often constructed near or within castle grounds, provided spiritual guidance, moral instruction, and a sense of order. The clergy mediated disputes, offered counsel, and reinforced social norms. For both the noble and the peasant, faith offered comfort in a world dominated by uncertainty, danger, and mortality. Rituals, festivals, and observances marked the passage of time, connecting communities across the landscape through shared devotion and collective experience. Despite the hardships, moments of joy and connection flourished. Weddings, feasts, and seasonal celebrations allowed nobles and peasants alike to pause from their daily burdens and participate in communal life. Music, dance, and storytelling served as both entertainment and a vehicle for preserving history and culture. These occasions reinforced identity and solidarity, reminding both classes of their shared humanity and interdependence. As evening fell across the Highlands, the glow of torches and hearth fires brought warmth to stone halls and cottages alike. Shadows danced along the castle walls, while families gathered in their cottages, sharing meals, stories, and companionship. The juxtaposition of nobility and peasantry, of wealth and labor, of power and vulnerability, defined medieval Scotland in ways that were subtle, enduring, and deeply human. Each life, whether lord, lady, or villager, was intertwined with the landscape, the seasons, and the responsibilities and risks of clan life. Through the lens of history, we see that castles were more than fortresses. They were centers of culture, authority, and survival. Beneath their walls, the rhythm of life, from ceremonial grandeur to the toil of fields, revealed a society shaped by hierarchy, obligation, and resilience. By observing these daily realities, we gain insight into the endurance, courage, and ingenuity that allowed medieval Scottish communities to thrive in a world that demanded vigilance, loyalty, and fortitude. As sleep begins to embrace our own weary minds, we can imagine the flicker of torchlight along castle corridors, the quiet murmur of families sharing stories in cottages below, and the steady pulse of life in a land that was at once beautiful, harsh, and profoundly alive. In these images, the lives of the nobility and peasantry intertwine, revealing a Scotland of contrasts, connections, and enduring human spirit. As dawn broke over the rugged Scottish Highlands, the mist curled like silver smoke between the jagged peaks, softening the harsh outlines of the landscape. The land seemed eternal, untouched by time, yet beneath its beauty lay centuries of struggle, conflict, and loyalty that defined the lives of those who called it home. In this chapter, we journey into the heart of the Highland clans, exploring the bonds, codes, and customs that shaped one of medieval Scotland's most defining social structures. The clan was more than a family. It was a living institution, a framework of loyalty, protection, an identity that governed every aspect of life. Membership in a clan was not simply a matter of blood. It was a pledge of allegiance, a shared history, and a commitment to defend one another against external threats. Each clan was anchored by a chief, a figure of both reverence and authority, whose role blended leadership, judgment, and warfare. The chief embodied the clan's honor, making decisions that could elevate or endanger generations. To break this bond was unthinkable. Loyalty was both a duty and a virtue, a code that shaped behavior and morality alike. For ordinary clansmen, life was defined by obedience to the chief and active participation in the survival of the clan. Fields had to be tended, livestock cared for, and fortifications maintained. Daily existence demanded endurance, skill, and vigilance, as rival clans, invaders, and natural hazards constantly tested the community. Yet within these demands existed a shared sense of purpose and belonging. Families were not isolated units, they were threads in a broader tapestry of kinship, bound by tradition and obligation. Children learned early to respect hierarchy, honor, and responsibility, internalizing the values that would guide them through adulthood. Feuds between clans were a persistent reality, a brutal manifestation of the code of honor that governed the Highlands. A stolen cow, a slighted marriage proposal, or a disputed piece of land could ignite a conflict that spanned generations. One such infamous feud was between Clan MacLeod and Clan MacDonald. Historical records tell of raids, ambushes, and retaliatory attacks that left villages smoldering and families grieving. The cycle of vengeance was relentless, often manipulated by external powers, yet it was always framed within the context of loyalty, justice, and honor. A clansman's reputation rested upon his courage, skill, and fidelity to his kin. Courage in battle, fairness in judgment, and loyalty to the chief defined a man's worth more than wealth or status ever could. Yet the Highland clans were not only defined by conflict. Traditions, rituals, and communal gatherings offered structure and solace. Seasonal festivals, religious observances, and clan councils reinforced social cohesion, transmitting knowledge and customs from one generation to the next. Music, particularly the haunting strains of bagpipes, marked ceremonies, inspired warriors, and reminded clansmen of their shared identity. Storytelling preserved history, legend, and morality, allowing young and old alike to internalize lessons of bravery, cunning, and resilience. These cultural practices were the glue that bound clans together, providing meaning and continuity even amidst violence and uncertainty. Women in the clans wielded influence that, while often subtle, was profound. Wives and mothers managed households, organized resources, and passed down knowledge essential to survival. They maintained morale, mediated disputes, and occasionally shaped political alliances through marriages arranged with strategic intent. Noblewomen could command respect and authority in their own right, sometimes acting as regents or advisors when circumstances required. Even for women of lower status, life demanded strength, intelligence, and resilience. They balanced labor with nurturing, often assuming roles of leadership in daily survival and decision-making, quietly ensuring the clan's endurance. The natural environment was both ally and adversary. The Highlands offered sustenance, resources, and protection, yet its rugged terrain, harsh winters, and unpredictable weather made survival challenging. Clansmen learned to navigate mountains, rivers, and forests with skill born of necessity. Knowledge of the land was crucial for hunting, gathering, and evading enemies. The ability to read weather patterns, track game, and utilize natural features for defense was passed down through generations, becoming second nature. Survival required cooperation, adaptability, and respect for the land's power and unpredictability. The bonds of the clan extended beyond daily survival into political and military strategy. Alliances were forged through marriage, oaths, and mutual interest, while rivalries demanded constant vigilance. Clans could collectively muster warriors for defense or conquest, with every able-bodied man prepared to fight when duty called. Strategy was rooted in local knowledge, mobility, and cohesion rather than sheer numbers. These communities were adept at using terrain to their advantage, staging ambushes, or defending strongholds in ways that frustrated even well-equipped invaders. The Highlanders' ability to endure hardship and defend their homes became legendary. Yet it came at the cost of a life perpetually intertwined with danger and uncertainty. Religion shaped the moral and cultural landscape of the clans. Christian observance provided a framework for understanding justice, morality, and community obligations. Saints' days, feasts, and church services offered moments of reflection, respite, and connection. The clergy were intermediaries, counselors, and recorders of history, reinforcing the bonds of kinship and social order. Yet faith coexisted with superstition and local folklore, blending practical guidance with tales of spirits, omens, and ancestral spirits that imbued the land with mystery and reverence. Life within the clans was a study in contrasts. Bravery and fear, celebration and mourning, abundance and scarcity existed side by side. Loyalty and betrayal, justice and vengeance, honor and pragmatism were constantly negotiated in daily interactions and momentous decisions alike. Yet through these tensions emerged a resilience and identity that would endure across centuries, leaving a legacy of courage, community, and unwavering commitment to kin. As twilight descended over the Highlands, the call of bagpipes echoed softly across the glens. Families gathered around fires, elders shared tales of ancestors, and children listened wide-eyed to stories of valor, cunning, and survival. Even in the quiet moments, one could sense the heartbeat of the clans, the pulse of loyalty, tradition, and identity that had sustained generations. Here, amidst mist, stone, and wind, life was raw and beautiful, harsh and enduring, terrifying and inspiring in equal measure. In the stillness of night, as the Highlands rested beneath a canopy of stars, we can imagine the lives of these clansmen and women, bound to each other, to their land, and to a code that transcended mere survival. Their world was one of blood and loyalty, danger and devotion, yet it was also a world of meaning, community, and resilience. As we drift into sleep, the echoes of their bagpipes and the whispers of their ancestors lull us into a connection with a time that was harsh, stirring, and profoundly human. As dawn broke over the rolling hills and fertile valleys of Scotland's lowlands, the landscape appeared gentle, serene, and inviting. Golden sunlight spilled across pastures. Rivers sparkled as they wound their way through villages, and smoke rose lazily from chimneys of humble stone homes. Yet beneath this calm exterior, life in the lowlands was no less fraught with challenges than the rugged Highlands. While clans dominated the north, the lowlands were shaped by agriculture, commerce, politics, and the ever-watchful hand of the crown. Here, life demanded resilience of a different kind, quiet vigilance, tireless labor, and adherence to both secular and spiritual authority. For the majority of lowland Scots, existence revolved around the cycles of the seasons. Farmers and laborers worked from sunrise to sunset, tending fields of barley, oats, and wheat, or caring for livestock that provided sustenance and income. Life was physically demanding, and the whims of nature could dictate survival. A poor harvest brought hunger. Harsh winters threatened both people and animals. Yet amid these trials, a sense of community persisted. Villagers relied upon one another to repair homes, share resources, and offer support during times of illness or misfortune. Bonds were forged through necessity, and trust became an invaluable currency in a world where fortunes could shift with the weather or a lord's decree. The lowlands were not free from conflict. Unlike the clan-centric Highlands, power here was concentrated in the hands of nobles, local lairds, and the monarchy. Land ownership determined wealth, influence, and security, and disputes over property or inheritance could escalate quickly. Peasants, bound to the soil through feudal obligations, often faced heavy rents, taxes, and labor demands. A single misstep, whether failing to meet a harvest quota or falling foul of a local lord, could bring punishment ranging from fines to imprisonment. The daily existence of common folk was therefore a delicate balancing act, navigating obligations while trying to protect their families and livelihoods. Political tensions were ever present. The crown sought to assert authority across the lowlands, yet resistance often emerged in subtle and overt ways. Local lords jostled for influence, sought to expand their holdings, or aligned themselves with more powerful figures to strengthen their positions. Alliances were fluid, and loyalty could be tested by ambition or the promise of advantage. Peasants witnessed these power struggles as observers, sometimes caught in the crossfire, often compelled to follow orders that served someone else's interests more than their own. Even in moments of peace, the awareness of hierarchical authority shaped behavior, social interactions, and long-term planning. Religion provided structure, solace, and a moral framework. The church was deeply embedded in daily life, dictating rituals, moral expectations, and communal gatherings. Saints' days marked celebrations, and services offered a chance to reflect, to seek guidance, and to participate in a shared spiritual life. For the common people, faith was intertwined with survival. Prayers were said for rain, good harvests, and protection from disease or disaster. Monks and priests were educators, advisors, and record keepers, their influence extending into almost every aspect of life. Yet religious devotion could also be exploited by the powerful, with the church occasionally reinforcing social hierarchies, validating political actions, or even sanctioning violence under the guise of divine will. Despite these pressures, culture and tradition thrived in the lowlands. Music, dance, and storytelling were central to community life. Minstrels and bards preserved tales of battles, heroes, and saints, passing them from one generation to the next. Festivals marked the changing seasons, with feasts, games, and ceremonies bringing moments of joy and unity. Craftsmen, blacksmiths, weavers, carpenters, contributed to both economy and culture, their skills indispensable for survival and for sustaining local pride. These cultural practices, like their Highland counterparts, reinforced social cohesion and offered relief from the demands of daily toil. Children in the lowlands experienced a life of education and labor intertwined. They learned practical skills essential for survival: farming, animal husbandry, weaving, while also absorbing moral lessons from parents, elders, and the church. Childhood was brief by adolescence. Many were fully integrated into the labor force, contributing to the household or supporting a lord's estate. Yet even amid labor, curiosity and imagination were nurtured through stories, games, and communal rituals. These early experiences shaped values, resilience, and an understanding of the world that would guide them through the trials of adulthood. The lowlands also faced external threats. Raids by rival factions, brigands, or occasional incursions from the Highlands tested local defenses. Communities had to be vigilant, maintain weapons, and coordinate collective responses to danger. Unlike the Highland clans, which relied on intimate knowledge of terrain and familial loyalty, lowlanders often depended on organized militias, watch systems, and alliances with neighboring villages to ensure safety. Preparation, communication, and strategy were essential, as a surprise attack could devastate crops, livestock, and homes within hours. One particularly harsh aspect of lowland life was the impact of plague, famine, and disease. Epidemics could sweep through villages, leaving devastation in their wake. Medical knowledge was limited, and treatments were rudimentary, often relying on herbal remedies, prayer, or superstition. Survival often depended on preventive measures, isolation, and community support. These crises reminded people of the fragility of life and the importance of resilience, cooperation, and resourcefulness. Despite hardships, the people of the lowlands exhibited a quiet dignity and perseverance. Families maintained homes, farmed land, and adhered to codes of morality and loyalty. Community rituals and festivals celebrated life's continuity, resilience, and beauty. Children grew up understanding the balance between duty and joy, work and rest, survival and celebration. Life demanded courage and patience, yet offered moments of connection, pride, and satisfaction that made the struggles worthwhile. As night fell over the lowlands, a blanket of stars illuminated the villages and fields, connecting the people below to the eternal rhythms of the cosmos. Fires burned in hearths, songs echoed through cottages, and the soft murmur of conversation filled the evening air. For all the challenges and threats, there was an undeniable beauty and stability to this life. Fragile yet enduring, harsh yet harmonious. In this chapter, we have seen the lowlands as a land of contrast, soft hills and fertile soils, yet governed by strict hierarchies and constant vigilance. A place of culture and faith, yet shadowed by illness, poverty, and the whims of powerful lords. And through it all, the people persisted, carving meaning, resilience, and community into the land they called home. As we drift into the quiet of night, the whispers of the past and the lessons of survival in the lowlands settle gently, guiding our dreams through a Scotland that was as beautiful as it was unforgiving. As the mist curled through the hills and valleys of medieval Scotland, a quieter, often overlooked world unfolded alongside the battles, feuds, and political maneuverings that dominate historical records. This was the world of women, mothers, daughters, wives, and widows, whose lives were interwoven with survival, loyalty, and resilience. While men were often celebrated in ballads for their exploits, it was the women who bore the silent burdens, ensuring that families, farms, and clans endured despite relentless hardship. Tonight, as we explore the lives of medieval Scottish women, allow your mind to drift gently through the rhythms of domestic life, the challenges of labor, and the quiet strength that shaped a nation. From the earliest age, girls in Scotland were taught the practical skills necessary for survival. They learned to cook over open fires, spin wool into thread, weave cloth, and maintain the household with efficiency and precision. Beyond these domestic duties, education often included religious instruction, moral guidance, and lessons in social decorum. Girls were expected to understand their roles within the family and the community, internalizing the importance of loyalty, obedience, and service. While opportunities for formal education were rare, the wisdom passed down through mothers, aunts, and grandmothers created a deep well of knowledge that ensured the continuity of culture, tradition, and practical skill. Marriage, often arranged for strategic or economic reasons, shaped much of a woman's life. A wife's responsibilities extended far beyond companionship. She was manager of the household, overseer of servants, and often mediator in disputes between family members. In the lowlands, a woman might also assist with farm work, tending animals, sowing crops, or helping with harvest. While in the Highlands, she might endure long journeys across rugged terrain to deliver supplies, messages, or assistance to her husband's clan. Marriage meant navigating a delicate balance between duty, survival, and personal influence, a task that required intelligence, diplomacy, and endurance. Motherhood was both a privilege and a challenge. Rising children demanded constant attention and resourcefulness, particularly in times of scarcity. Midwifery was an essential skill, often passed down from one woman to the next, blending herbal knowledge, practical experience, and spiritual guidance. The risks of childbirth were ever present, with complications threatening the lives of both mother and child. Despite the dangers, women's role as caregivers and educators ensured the survival of generations. They nurtured not only physical growth, but also moral understanding, loyalty to family, and awareness of social obligations. Through their efforts, the social fabric of Scotland remained intact even amid turmoil. Widows occupied a unique position in medieval society. Their lives were defined by both opportunity and constraint. Freed from the immediate authority of a husband, widows could manage property, influence household decisions, and even wield a degree of power within their communities. However, they also faced vulnerability, social, economic, and physical, especially if they had limited resources or no children to support them. Widows often relied on kin networks, church charity, or the generosity of their late husband's clan to maintain security. Their resilience was remarkable. Many navigated these challenges with quiet fortitude, sustaining their households and protecting their families in times of uncertainty. Daily life for women was punctuated by labor, both visible and unseen. Work began before sunrise and ended long after sunset. Tasks such as fetching water from streams, grinding grain, tending livestock, cooking, cleaning, sewing, and repairing clothing required constant attention. Illness, poor harvests, or conflict could amplify these burdens, demanding resourcefulness and ingenuity. Yet women often found ways to bring moments of grace and creativity into their daily routines. Embroidery, storytelling, song, and prayer offered respite from physical toil, nurturing the soul even as the body labored. These small acts of beauty and care became the invisible threads that held households and communities together. Religion played a central role in women's lives. Daily prayers, attendance at church services, and participation in religious festivals provided structure, guidance, and a sense of purpose. Women also served as spiritual pillars within their households, teaching children prayers, moral lessons, and traditions that linked the past to the present. Saints' days and seasonal rituals punctuated the year, offering communal moments of reflection, celebration, and unity. Faith was both a comfort and a source of authority, reinforcing social norms while offering solace in times of hardship. Yet women's influence extended beyond the domestic and spiritual realms. Noblewomen wielded political power, negotiated alliances, and even acted as regents or military strategists in the absence of their husbands. In times of conflict, they could command resources, organize defenses, and protect their families' interests with shrewd judgment. These exceptional women demonstrated that strength and intelligence were not limited to the battlefield. Their contributions shaped the political and social landscapes of Scotland, often leaving legacies that endured for generations. The darker realities of women's lives cannot be overlooked. They faced the constant threat of violence, exploitation, and coercion. Social norms often constrained autonomy, while expectations of obedience and subservience limited choices. Yet within these constraints, women displayed remarkable resilience, adapting to circumstances and finding ways to exert influence where possible. Their courage was quiet but pervasive, a testament to endurance and ingenuity in the face of systemic pressures. Amid these struggles, moments of tenderness and joy emerged. Women nurtured friendships, shared stories, and supported one another in both work and leisure. Seasonal celebrations, weddings, and festivals offered opportunities for laughter, song, and dance, even in the harshest winters. Gatherings around the hearth provided warmth, companionship, and the chance to pass down wisdom and tradition. These moments created a rhythm to life, softening its hardships and reminding communities of the enduring value of human connection. As night settled over the Scottish landscape, the work of women did not end entirely. Fires were tended, children comforted, and animals cared for. Yet there was also space for quiet reflection, prayer, and preparation for the challenges of the coming day. The dedication of women, so often unrecorded in history, ensured that households, communities, and entire clans could survive the tumultuous centuries ahead. Their lives, woven into the fabric of medieval Scotland, embodied resilience, devotion, and an enduring strength that transcended circumstance. In contemplating the lives of these women, we gain a deeper appreciation for the hidden dimensions of history. While battles, politics, and feuds dominate our imaginations, it is the steadfast endurance of women that sustains society. Their stories, quiet yet profound, echo through time as reminders of courage, wisdom, and the unseen labor that makes survival, and ultimately, legacy, possible. As your eyes grow heavy, imagine a Scottish night. The distant howl of wolves, the soft rustle of leaves in the forests, and the faint flicker of candlelight in humble cottages, where women quietly carry their burdens. Let these images settle gently into your mind, carrying you toward rest, understanding, and a deeper connection to the hidden lives of Scotland's past. As the Highlands lay shrouded in morning mist, and the lowlands glimmered with dew-kissed fields, a darker reality often crept quietly through the Scottish landscape. Life in medieval Scotland, though picturesque in its hills, glens, and rivers, was constantly shadowed by forces beyond human control: disease, famine, and the unpredictable cruelty of nature. Tonight, as we delve into the trials faced by ordinary Scots in these harsh times, let your imagination wander gently through windswept moors, deserted villages, and fields left fallow by misfortune. Let the story unfold like a soft lullaby, revealing the resilience, resourcefulness, and courage that sustained people through periods of suffering that could appear relentless. Plague, known in later centuries as the Black Death, arrived intermittently in waves, leaving terror and devastation in its wake. Although records from Scotland are less precise than those from England or continental Europe, we know that epidemics swept across towns and villages, decimating populations and disrupting every aspect of daily life. The disease did not discriminate; noble and peasant alike could succumb, leaving families bereft and communities in disarray. Entire households could vanish in a matter of days, their farms abandoned and livestock left to wander. Fear of contagion and the unknown amplified suffering as people sought remedies in prayer, superstition, and whatever folk medicine they could muster. Life during plague was a constant negotiation between caution and necessity. Villagers who survived often faced the agonizing choice between tending their fields and avoiding contact with neighbors. Markets emptied, fairs were cancelled, and traveling minstrels or clergy sometimes brought news that heightened both dread and awareness. Yet amidst fear, small acts of courage and compassion endured. Families cared for the sick when possible, neighbors shared resources, and those with knowledge of herbs or healing methods became quiet pillars of their communities. Even in darkness, humanity persisted, weaving connections that could outlast even the deadliest waves of disease. Famine, a frequent companion to plague, shaped Scottish life profoundly. Crops failed due to unpredictable weather, early frosts, or pestilence, and a single season of poor harvest could imperil entire villages. Grain stores dwindled, prices soared, and the weak or vulnerable, especially children and the elderly, often bore the brunt of scarcity. In these times, survival depended on ingenuity and cooperation. Families rationed food meticulously, preserved what they could through drying, salting, or smoking, and relied on wild edibles gathered from forests, rivers, and moors. The diet of ordinary Scots was simple oatmeal, barley, turnips, and root vegetables, supplemented by occasional meat or fish when available. Though sparse, these meals were carefully managed to sustain energy and life. Despite the hardship, the rhythm of rural life continued. Shepherds tended flocks even when pastures were thin, millers ground what grain remained, and women preserved and cooked whatever sustenance they could gather. Communities came together, sharing resources, knowledge, and labor. In the Highlands, clans supported one another, moving herds, pooling supplies, or assisting neighbors in rebuilding after a particularly harsh winter. Survival was both an individual effort and a communal endeavor. Without collaboration, life could easily crumble under the weight of misfortune. The psychological toll of plague and famine cannot be understated. The fear of sudden death, hunger, or losing one's home was ever present, shaping behavior, beliefs, and social interactions. Superstition often flourished in these conditions, offering explanations or comfort when logic failed. People turned to charms, rituals, and prayers for protection. The clergy provided guidance, but even their influence was sometimes limited when death stalked the land. Yet for all the fear and uncertainty, ordinary Scots developed remarkable resilience, learning to adapt, persevere, and maintain hope even when circumstances were grim. The nobility and clergy were not immune to these struggles. Though their responses differed, lords and abbots often had more resources to withstand crop failures or outbreaks of disease. Yet they also faced responsibilities that could become overwhelming. Protecting tenants, maintaining lands, and managing obligations to the crown required difficult choices. At times, nobles provided food or shelter to support those under their charge, though scarcity often forced impossible decisions. Their experience highlights the complex interplay between privilege and vulnerability, demonstrating that even power could not fully shield one from the forces of nature. Children experienced these hardships acutely. They were expected to contribute to survival through labor, fetching water, tending animals, or helping with crops. Education and play were luxuries that often fell away during times of crisis. Yet children also absorbed resilience from those around them, learning practical skills, the value of cooperation, and the necessity of endurance. Through observation and participation, they became active participants in the survival of their households and communities. Famine and plague also shaped culture and belief. Folk tales, prayers, and rituals often referenced these hardships, embedding lessons about human frailty, divine judgment, and the need for compassion. Seasonal festivals, though sometimes muted during crises, offered moments of collective relief and hope, reminding communities of shared humanity and the continuity of life even in hardship. Music, storytelling, and simple acts of care became lifelines, offering comfort when material resources were scarce. Amidst these trials, individual stories of courage and ingenuity abound. A widow managing her late husband's farm through a poor harvest, a healer tending the sick with limited herbs, or a child navigating treacherous terrain to fetch supplies, all illustrate the quiet heroism that history often overlooks. Survival was not glamorous or heroic in the conventional sense, but it required creativity, intelligence, and emotional strength. These acts, repeated across countless households, sustained Scotland through centuries of uncertainty. As night falls over the Scottish countryside, the wind whispering through the heather, and the distant howl of wolves echoing across moors. Imagine villages huddled against misfortune. Fires flicker in stone cottages, families share meager meals, and the sick are comforted as best they can. In the darkness, resilience glimmers like candlelight, subtle yet persistent. It is in these quiet moments, away from battlefields and royal courts, that the true endurance of Scotland's people is revealed. As your mind drifts towards sleep, picture the rhythm of survival. A shepherd's quiet footsteps across a misty hillside, the soft murmur of a stream providing water, the scent of hearth smoke curling through the night air. Let these images soothe and remind you that even in the harshest circumstances, life finds a way. In these shadows of plague and famine, humanity endures, quietly, courageously, and with a determination that echoes through the ages. As the Scottish sun rises over the craggy peaks of the Highlands, its light spills across heather-covered hills, glens cloaked in morning mist, and rivers winding like silver threads through the rugged landscape. Yet beneath this serene beauty lies a world governed by loyalty, rivalry, and an unyielding code of honor. In tonight's chapter, let us wander gently through the lives of the Highland clans, whose bonds of blood, kinship, and territory shaped Scotland's history for centuries. Relax into the rhythm of the story as we explore a world of fierce devotion, simmering grudges, and the delicate balance between survival and pride. Clans were the foundation of Highland society. Each clan, whether Campbell, MacDonald, MacLean, or Mackenzie, was more than a family. It was a collective identity that offered protection, belonging, and a sense of purpose. The chief, often a formidable figure of both charisma and authority, ruled with a mixture of respect, fear, and affection. Under the chief's guidance, clan members learned loyalty, honor, and the delicate art of diplomacy amidst a landscape where alliances could shift like the wind across the moors. Membership in a clan was both privilege and obligation. Every person, from the youngest child to the eldest elder, had a role to play. Young boys were trained as future warriors, learning to wield swords, axes, and shields with precision, while girls learned domestic skills, essential for the survival of the household. Each member was expected to uphold the clan's honor, whether in daily life, at the market, or during moments of conflict. Loyalty was paramount. A single betrayal could shatter not only a family's reputation, but also its very place within the clan's hierarchy. Rivalries between clans often simmered for decades, occasionally erupting into violent confrontation. Disputes could arise over land, resources, or long-standing grudges passed down through generations. Though the battles could be bloody, they were governed by an unspoken code honor, dictated conduct even in war. Raids were meticulously planned, strategies devised with care, and leaders were respected for skill and cunning. Amid the chaos, there was a strange order, a structure that maintained a fragile balance between vengeance and restraint. The rivalry between Clan Campbell and Clan MacDonald is one of the most infamous in Scottish history. Centuries of mistrust and bloodshed were fueled by disputes over territory, alliances, and perceived slights. Every skirmish, raid, an act of retribution was not just a battle over land, but a test of honor. Each generation inherited the weight of its ancestors' decisions, carrying forward both pride and the responsibility to protect the clan's name. The consequences of these feuds were felt far beyond the battlefield. Families lived in constant awareness of the potential for conflict, shaping everyday life, marriage alliances, and communal interactions. Yet life in the Highlands was not defined solely by war and rivalry. Bonds of kinship offered comfort, companionship, and a sense of security amidst uncertainty. Clan gatherings, festivals, and ceremonies celebrated heritage, marked milestones, and reinforced loyalty. Music, dance, and storytelling played vital roles, weaving lessons of courage, wisdom, and resilience into the cultural fabric. Even the harshest winters, or the threat of attack, could not diminish the importance of these moments, for they reminded clan members of their shared identity and the enduring spirit of their people. Hospitality was another cornerstone of clan life. A traveler seeking refuge in a clan's territory could expect shelter, food, and safety, as long as they respected local customs. Sharing resources, especially during lean times, strengthened communal bonds and reinforced the principle that survival was intertwined with cooperation. In return, loyalty to the clan extended beyond mere survival. It shaped morality, social expectations, and even spiritual beliefs. Acts of generosity and protection became entwined with the code of honor that guided Highland life. Education within clans was practical, rooted in the immediate needs of survival. Young men learned combat, navigation, and the management of livestock, while young women mastered domestic arts, herbal remedies, and midwifery. Storytelling passed down history, lore, and moral lessons, ensuring that each generation carried the collective wisdom of the clan. Songs and oral histories celebrated triumphs and warned of past mistakes, embedding cultural memory into the fabric of daily life. In this way, the Highlands were both a school and a stage, teaching resilience, adaptability, and courage through lived experience. The natural landscape played a profound role in shaping clan identity. Mountains, rivers, and forests were not merely scenery. They defined territories, provided resources, and served as natural defenses. Knowledge of the land, its hidden passes, hunting grounds, and foraging spots, was vital for survival. Seasonal patterns dictated movement, agriculture, and preparation for winter. A clan's connection to its territory was sacred, a bond strengthened by generations of care, struggle, and reliance on the land's bounty. Despite the constant threat of conflict, moments of peace offered the chance for reflection and cultural flourishing. Highlanders celebrated the changing seasons with rituals that combined spirituality, practicality, and communal joy. Weddings, harvest festivals, and religious ceremonies marked transitions in life, offering respite from daily hardships. These occasions reinforced social cohesion, transmitted values, and created memories that would endure, even amidst turmoil. As night descends over the Highlands, imagine the flicker of hearth fires across glens, the low hum of conversation in stone cottages, and the distant echo of bagpipes carried on the wind. Clan members settle into the rhythms of life, wary yet vigilant, comforted by the strength of kinship and the knowledge that they are part of something enduring. In the stillness of evening, the story of loyalty, rivalry, and honor continues, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of community. The Highland clans, with their intricate web of relationships, codes, and traditions, exemplify the delicate balance between survival and pride, individuality and collective identity. They demonstrate that even in a world filled with danger, hardship, and uncertainty, humans seek connection, meaning, and continuity. In understanding the clans, we glimpse not only the history of Scotland, but also the timeless qualities that allow people to endure, adapt, and thrive amidst adversity. As you drift into sleep, let the story of the Highland clans accompany you, the soft rustle of heather, the distant call of an eagle, the quiet murmur of a flowing stream. Picture warriors preparing for battle with discipline and care, families tending their homes with diligence and devotion, and entire communities bound together by loyalty, honor, and love. These images, serene yet rich with history, guide you gently into slumber, reminding you that even amidst conflict and struggle, life finds balance and beauty in unexpected ways. As dawn rises over the Scottish Highlands, a delicate mist lingers among the heather and pine, softening the jagged outlines of the mountains and painting the valleys in gentle shades of grey and green. Life here is defined not only by the clashes of clans and the battles fought over honor and land, but also by the quiet strength of everyday people. The farmers, shepherds, craftsmen, and families whose resilience kept Highland society alive through centuries of turbulence. Tonight, let us move away from the drama of warfare and explore the soothing, steadfast rhythms of ordinary Highland life. A world filled with small triumphs, daily rituals, and enduring courage. The daily life of Highlanders was shaped by the demands of the land, the seasons, and the unrelenting forces of nature. Families rose before sunrise, the chill of the morning wind a constant reminder of the hardships that lay ahead. In the fields, men worked tirelessly, tilling soil, planting crops, and tending livestock. Sheep and cattle roamed the hills, their health carefully monitored. For the animals were both a source of sustenance and a measure of wealth. The work was exhausting, yet it offered stability and a sense of purpose, a rhythm that connected each day to the next, and each generation to the one before. Women played an equally vital role in sustaining Highland communities. Beyond managing households and caring for children, they were skilled in tasks essential to survival, weaving wool into cloth, churning milk into butter, preserving food for the harsh winters, and preparing medicinal herbs for common ailments. Their work often went uncelebrated, but it was the backbone of daily life, ensuring that families could endure and thrive despite the challenges of weather, scarcity, and conflict. Together, men and women cultivated a sense of interdependence, teaching their children resilience, practical skills, and the values of care and responsibility. Children, too, were integral to the functioning of the household and the broader clan community. From a young age, they learned through observation, imitation, and gentle instruction. Boys might accompany their fathers to the fields, learning to read the land and tend to animals, while girls assisted with domestic chores and learned the traditions of family and clan. Storytelling was central to education, passing down moral lessons, cultural history, and practical knowledge through songs, tales, and myths. Even in moments of play, children absorbed the rhythms and expectations of Highland life, preparing for adulthood in a world that demanded both strength and adaptability. Daily routines were punctuated by simple pleasures and small rituals that nurtured both body and spirit. Breakfast might consist of oatmeal or bread baked over the hearth, accompanied by fresh milk or a hearty stew. Mealtimes were more than sustenance. They were moments to gather, share news, and strengthen the bonds that tied families together. The fire's warmth in a stone cottage offered comfort against the wind and rain outside, creating a sense of safety and continuity in a world often defined by uncertainty. Highlanders were intimately connected to the natural rhythms of their environment. The changing seasons dictated work and leisure. Spring brought planting and lambing. Summer provided long days of tending crops and gathering food. Autumn demanded preparation for winter. And winter tested endurance with cold, scarcity, and the need for vigilance against disease or raiders. This close relationship with nature cultivated a deep awareness of timing, observation, and respect for forces beyond human control. Life's lessons were often learned not in words, but through direct engagement with the land, the animals, and the weather. Despite the hardships, Highland communities found joy and solace in music, storytelling, and celebration. The sound of bagpipes drifting across a glen, the rhythm of a fiddle at a village gathering, or the laughter of children playing in a courtyard brought warmth to even the coldest days. Songs commemorated victories, mourned losses, and preserved the clan's history, while stories offered both entertainment and moral guidance. These cultural expressions were not mere distractions. They were a source of resilience, nurturing hope, identity, and connection amid uncertainty. Religion and spirituality also provided structure and comfort in daily life. The kirk, small stone churches scattered throughout the Highlands, served as centers of worship, education, and social cohesion. Priests guided moral conduct, offered counsel, and reinforced community values, while religious festivals marked the passage of time and offered moments of collective reflection. Faith intertwined with everyday tasks, imbuing work and family life with a sense of purpose and grounding Highlanders in a moral and spiritual framework that guided their choices. Community was central to survival. Neighbors supported one another during sickness, famine, or natural disaster, sharing resources and labor to ensure that no family was left to endure hardship alone. Collective effort was particularly crucial during harvests, building projects, and defense against raiders. This sense of mutual dependence strengthened bonds and fostered a culture of empathy, cooperation, and resilience, reminding all that even in a world of uncertainty, solidarity offered protection and hope. Yet the quiet strength of everyday Highlanders extended beyond practical survival. It encompassed endurance, patience, and the courage to face life's daily uncertainties with grace. It was present in the resilience of a mother caring for her children through a harsh winter, the perseverance of a farmer coaxing crops from rocky soil, and the wisdom of elders guiding younger generations with experience and compassion. In these acts, small but profound, the true heart of Highland life is revealed, a community sustained not by power or wealth alone, but by unwavering commitment, patience, and care. As night falls, imagine the soft glow of fires flickering in cottages, the low hum of conversation mingling with the distant call of an owl. Picture families gathered around the hearth, sharing stories and songs, the warmth of kinship softening the chill outside. Let your mind rest on the quiet endurance of Highland life, the daily triumphs and gentle routines that shaped a people capable of withstanding centuries of hardship. The simple rhythm of life, work, family, faith, and community offers a soothing cadence, guiding thoughts toward peace and rest. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, carry with you the image of the Highlands, not only as a land of warriors and battles, but as a place where resilience, love, and community endured through every storm. Picture fields bathed in moonlight, streams glinting like silver threads, and cottages radiating warmth and comfort. Feel the rhythm of daily life, the quiet courage, the steadfast care, and the enduring hope of ordinary Highlanders, as it lulls you into a gentle, restful slumber. A reminder that strength often resides in patience, loyalty, and the ordinary moments that sustain us. As the sun dips behind the rugged peaks of the Scottish Highlands, the valleys are bathed in a soft amber glow, and the wind whispers through the heather, carrying with it the faint scent of pine and moss. The once untamed hills, echoing with the clash of claymores and the cries of raiding clans, are slowly transforming under the pressures of history, politics, and the march of time. In this chapter, let us drift gently into a period of transition, exploring how centuries of fierce loyalty, enduring feuds, and everyday resilience gradually gave way to a changing world, while still preserving the quiet dignity and steadfastness of Highland life. By the late 17th and early 18th centuries, The traditional clan system, which had long defined Highland society, began to face profound challenges. The centralization of power by the Scottish crown, coupled with the growing influence of the British government after the Union of 1707, meant that local chiefs were no longer the absolute rulers of their territories. Their authority, once unquestioned, was increasingly scrutinized, and their decisions influenced by external politics rather than solely by clan loyalty. This shift brought tension and uncertainty, but also the beginnings of adaptation, as communities learned to navigate a world in which the old ways of raiding, feuding, and autonomous governance were gradually giving way to a more regulated society. For ordinary Highlanders, this transition was both daunting and hopeful. The ever-present threat of clan warfare began to diminish, offering the promise of greater stability and a chance to cultivate the land without the constant fear of raids or retaliatory attacks. However, these changes were not without cost. Chiefs, whose power and prestige had been tied to their ability to protect and lead their clans, found themselves negotiating with distant authorities rather than relying on traditional methods. Families who had lived under the rhythm of clan loyalty for generations had to adapt to new legal systems, new obligations, and new social hierarchies. Yet, through it all, the resilience and patience of Highland communities remained a constant, allowing them to endure and thrive, even as the landscape of power shifted around them. Despite these changes, the bonds of kinship and community continued to shape everyday life. Families maintained their traditions, rituals, and moral frameworks, passing down stories of ancestors, heroic deeds, and cautionary tales to the next generation. Music, storytelling, and celebration remained central to cultural identity, serving as both entertainment and a vehicle for memory and moral guidance. Children grew up learning not only practical skills, but also the values of courage, loyalty, and compassion, ensuring that the spirit of the Highlands persisted, even as political and social structures evolved. Religion continued to play a stabilizing role during this period of change. The Kirk provided guidance, education, and a sense of continuity, helping communities navigate the uncertainties of shifting authority and societal transformation. Religious leaders emphasized moral conduct, community responsibility, and the enduring importance of faith, weaving spiritual life into the fabric of daily routines. For many Highlanders, these practices offered comfort and reassurance, a reminder that while the world around them was changing, the rhythms of devotion, reflection, and community would remain steadfast. Economically, the Highlands experienced both challenge and opportunity. The rise of commerce, trade, and new agricultural methods brought fresh possibilities, while also disrupting long-established ways of life. Some families prospered, acquiring wealth and status, while others faced displacement or hardship as land ownership became increasingly regulated and economic pressures mounted. Through it all, the Highlanders' intimate knowledge of the land, combined with their determination and adaptability, allowed them to navigate these shifts with resilience. Fields were plowed, livestock tended, and homes maintained with the same dedication that had sustained generations, a testament to the quiet strength that defined Highland society. The twilight of the clans also brought subtle cultural evolution. While the era of violent feuds and raiding waned, the values that had underpinned these conflicts, courage, loyalty, and honor, found new expression in community cooperation, storytelling, and artistic endeavors. Songs and poems began to reflect not only battles and heroic deeds, but also the beauty of the land, the dignity of daily labor, and the enduring bonds of family and clan. In this way, the Highlands retained their identity, even as the external pressures reshaped the structures that had long governed life. Amid these transformations, ordinary Highlanders continued to find moments of joy and solace. Seasonal festivals, communal gatherings, and simple daily pleasures, such as tending the hearth, weaving cloth, or sharing a meal, remained vital to the well-being of communities. Music, laughter, and storytelling served as gentle reminders of continuity, connection, and the human capacity for hope. Even in the face of social and political upheaval, the spirit of the Highlands endured, nurtured by generations of people who had learned to find strength, comfort, and beauty in the ordinary rhythms of life. As night falls over the glens and hills, imagine the soft glow of fires in cottages, the low murmur of voices mingling with the distant calls of owls and the whispering wind. Families gather around the hearth, children lulled by the gentle cadence of stories, the steady warmth of kinship, and the enduring presence of community. The Highlands, though changing, remain a place of resilience, beauty, and quiet dignity, where the strength of ordinary people continues to shape the land and preserve the values of courage, loyalty, and compassion. In these twilight years of the clans, we are reminded that history is not only made in dramatic battles or the halls of power, but also in the everyday acts of care, endurance, and devotion. The quiet courage of Highlanders, nurturing children, tending fields, maintaining homes, and sustaining communities, offers a gentle, reassuring rhythm, a soothing pattern that echoes across time. Tonight, as you drift into sleep, let your mind rest on the Highlands in this period of transformation. A land where the echoes of the past mingle with the promise of a more stable future, where ordinary people continue to demonstrate extraordinary resilience, and where the spirit of the clans lives on in memory, song, and the enduring rhythms of daily life. As the final light of day softens over the rolling hills and mist-cloaked glens of Scotland, we arrive at the closing chapter of our journey through a land both breathtaking and brutal. The past, layered in centuries of clan rivalries, harsh winters, and the ever-present threat of invasion, has shaped a people whose resilience, loyalty, and quiet courage endure to this day. Tonight, let us settle gently into the soothing rhythms of the Highlands, reflecting on the legacy of those who lived, loved, and struggled in a world both magnificent and merciless. By the dawn of the 18th century, Scotland had transformed significantly. The fierce independence of the clans remained a point of pride, yet their autonomy was tempered by the growing influence of central government, trade, and modern law. Feuds that had once erupted into violent confrontations became stories told by the hearth, songs passed down from one generation to the next. The echoes of battles, raids, and political intrigue faded into the hills, leaving space for quieter pursuits, agriculture, craftsmanship, and cultural expression. The Highlands, once a theatre of constant survival, had become a landscape where endurance met reflection, and tradition blended with adaptation. For the people of medieval Scotland, life had never been simple. Daily survival required skill, foresight, and a deep connection to the land. Peasants tilled the soil with calloused hands, shepherds guided flocks through misty valleys, and women carried the weight of homes, families, and community. Every season brought new challenges. Harsh winters tested physical endurance. The threat of famine demanded resourcefulness, and disease reminded communities of their fragility. Yet, through these trials, they cultivated resilience and ingenuity, drawing strength from family, faith, and the bonds of clan loyalty. These ordinary acts, often unnoticed in grand historical accounts, were the foundation upon which the Highland spirit was built. The legacy of the clans, so central to Scottish identity, was not only one of conflict, but also of unity, honor, and continuity. Chiefs, once wielders of almost absolute power, became guardians of heritage, storytellers, and symbols of stability in times of change. Their leadership evolved from the battlefield to the negotiation table, from raids to administration, reflecting the broader shift of society. And while disputes persisted, they increasingly gave way to dialogue, legal settlements, and the quiet persistence of community norms. The core values of courage, loyalty, and honor remained, adapted to new circumstances, and preserved in the songs, tales, and memories of those who endured. Scotland's natural beauty, the rugged mountains, deep lochs, and heathered hills, offered not only sustenance, but also solace. Highlanders had long known the rhythms of the land, reading its moods and adjusting their lives accordingly. Rivers provided fish, forests sheltered game, and fertile valleys yielded grain and vegetables. The seasons dictated routines, celebrations, and rest, connecting people intimately with the cycles of nature. This bond to the environment nurtured a contemplative, patient spirit, one capable of finding peace even amid hardship. As night falls across these landscapes, it is easy to imagine the quiet moments of reflection, when communities pause to appreciate the simple and enduring beauty around them. Culturally, the Highlands thrived. Music, poetry, and oral storytelling continued to flourish, preserving memory and shaping identity. Bagpipes and fiddles carried melodies that spoke of love, loss, triumph, and tragedy. Tales of heroes, saints, and cunning tricksters were told by the fire, teaching lessons, entertaining, and connecting listeners to a lineage that stretched back centuries. These cultural practices offered comfort, a rhythmic cadence that soothed the soul much like the gentle rustle of leaves or the soft lapping of water against a loch. They were, and remain, a testament to the enduring human need for expression, connection, and continuity. Even as modernization crept in, Highlanders maintained their traditions with quiet dignity. Festivals, harvest celebrations, and religious observances remained central to communal life. Families gathered to share stories, food, and laughter, reinforcing the bonds that had long sustained them. Children learned the ways of their ancestors, acquiring skills that blended practicality with cultural memory. In this way, the old world and the new existed side by side, creating a sense of stability and identity amidst ongoing change. Reflecting on the long arc of Scotland's medieval history, it becomes clear that life here was defined not solely by hardship, but by endurance, creativity, and the human capacity to adapt. The struggles of peasants, warriors, and chiefs alike reveal the delicate balance between survival and aspiration, between loyalty and independence. Highlanders faced cruelty, deprivation, and uncertainty with courage, patience, and ingenuity, cultivating a society where even the most ordinary acts held meaning and value. These lessons, whispered across centuries, remain as relevant today as they were in the misty glens of the past. Now, as the night deepens, imagine the Highland skies overhead. Stars shimmer in a vast, undimmed expanse, reflecting on still waters and illuminating stone cottages nestled in the folds of the hills. The wind murmurs through the trees, carrying the scents of pine, heather, and distant peat fires. Fires flicker in homes, where families share warmth, food, and stories. The sounds of the past, bagpipes, laughter, the gentle lowing of cattle, blend with the peaceful hush of night. In this serene moment, one can almost hear the whispers of those who lived long ago, their resilience, courage, and humanity lingering in the air, reminding us of the deep connections that span time and place. As you drift gently towards sleep, let the history of medieval Scotland settle around you like a soft blanket. Feel the rhythm of the Highlands, the endurance of its people, and the quiet beauty of their landscapes. Imagine yourself walking the misty paths, hearing tales of valor, witnessing acts of compassion, and experiencing the natural wonder that shaped a culture of profound strength and sensitivity. This is a Scotland of memory and imagination, of human struggle and achievement, a place where the past and present meet in harmony. In this final chapter, we honor the legacy of the Highlands, not only as a land of conflict and challenge, but also as a source of inspiration, resilience, and peace. The stories of clans, families, and individuals form a tapestry rich with courage, wisdom, and humanity. Though centuries have passed, the spirit of those who navigated life's trials with steadfast hearts continues to whisper in the winds, glens, and lochs. Tonight, let these whispers lull you into a restful, dream-filled sleep, carrying with them the essence of Scotland's enduring soul. Good night, wary traveller. May the Highlands watch over your dreams, and may the courage, loyalty, and gentle strength of Scotland's past inspire peace and comfort in your heart. The morning light creeps over the jagged peaks of Scotland's Highlands, filtering through mist like strands of silver spun from the clouds themselves. The wind sighs across the glens, tugging at the heather and bending the young pine trees with gentle insistence. The scent of wet earth and moss rises, mingling with the faint tang of smoke drifting from stone cottages tucked into the hillsides. For those who dwell in this wild, untamed land, each day begins with a silent prayer, a hope for survival, for warmth, and for the endurance to face whatever the Highland world will demand. In medieval Scotland, the landscape is not merely scenery, it is a living presence. Every hill, valley, and forested slope holds the memory of generations, a tapestry woven of blood, loyalty, and the struggle for life itself. Streams dash over stones, sparkling in the early sunlight, providing water for families and livestock alike. They're babbling a quiet song against the stillness of the morning. Across the lochs, the mirror, smooth water, reflects the pale gold of dawn. A brief moment of serenity in a land where calm is always fleeting. The people of these highlands live in a world of contrasts. Beauty and danger coexist in every crevice and glen. While the morning sun may glint on the peaks, promising warmth and light, the shadows of the past linger, rival clans plotting raids, ancient feuds simmering like coals waiting to ignite, and the ever-looming spectre of harsh winters that can sweep away crops, livestock, and lives. Here, survival is an art. The soft rhythm of sheep in the fields, the slow churn of the mill wheel, the careful tending of vegetable gardens, all are acts of resilience against a land that is as generous as it is unforgiving. The clan system dominates the social fabric of medieval Scotland. Each clan, a network of families bound by blood and loyalty, offers protection, identity, and a sense of belonging in a world where laws are often fragile and justice is personal and immediate. At the head of every clan stands the chief, a figure part warlord, part judge, and part father, revered and feared in equal measure. The chief ensures that oaths are kept, disputes settled, and warriors prepared to defend their people or expand their territory. The bonds of loyalty run deeper than allegiance to any king. In this land, a man's honor is inseparable from his clans, and betrayal can carry a price measured in exile, shame, or death. Yet this fierce loyalty, vital as it is, also casts long shadows. Feuds between clans can stretch across generations, fueled by revenge, pride, and the memory of old slights. Consider the notorious feud between Clan Campbell and Clan MacDonald, whose animosity ignited in the 14th century and festered through the ages. Lands granted by Robert the Bruce to the Campbells in Argyll, were perceived as a grave injustice by the MacDonalds, who had long claimed the territory as their own. The conflict escalated into bloodshed that would haunt both clans for centuries. Villages were raided, crops burned, and innocents were caught in the deadly crossfire. For ordinary people, life in these times was a delicate balance between courage and caution, their days shaped by loyalty, fear, and the constant need to anticipate danger. For the Highland clans, life was as much about community as it was about conflict. Families leaned on one another, passing down traditions, tales, and skills through the generations. The old songs of the bards echoed in the halls, recounting the deeds of legendary warriors, cautioning against pride, and celebrating loyalty. Festivals and holy days, though fewer than in more settled regions, offered moments of relief. Gatherings where neighbors exchanged news, shared meals, and reinforced bonds of kinship. Yet even these moments were tinged with vigilance, for danger could lurk in any shadow, and the line between friend and foe could blur with surprising ease. As the day unfolds, the land itself takes on a character of its own. The Highlands are alive with movement, deer bounding across glens, hawks circling above, and the distant sound of a blacksmith's hammer in a small village forge. The wind carries whispers of past battles, the sighs of weary warriors, and the murmurs of families tending to their daily toil. This is a Scotland both majestic and merciless, a land that shapes its people as much as they shape it in return. Amidst this beauty and brutality, ordinary folk carve out their existence. Peasants work tirelessly in stone-walled fields, breaking the hard soil with crude tools and tending crops that will sustain their families through unforgiving winters. Shepherds guide flocks along precarious slopes, ever watchful for predators and thieves alike. Children learn the rhythms of the land from their parents, the lessons of survival etched into their very bones: how to hunt, how to forage, how to respect both nature and clan. Every sunrise brings new challenges, and every sunset a tentative sense of accomplishment. Even within the safety of a clan stronghold, life is defined by vigilance. Stone castles rise like stubborn sentinels over the hills, their walls offering protection, yet serving as reminders of the constant threat from rival clans and foreign invaders. Within these walls, life is regimented, ceremonial, and demanding. The chief presides over disputes, maintains alliances, and marshals the clan's warriors. Nobles weigh the balance of power, negotiate marriages, and ensure that the honor of the clan remains unblemished. For those who reside in these halls, the luxury is often minimal, comfort a rare indulgence, and every privilege intertwined with responsibility. And yet, there is a strange, quiet beauty in it all. The mist rising from the valleys, the steady flow of rivers, the scent of pine and heather. These moments of peace, however brief, remind the people of their connection to the land and to one another. They teach resilience, patience, and the small joys that make life worth living, even in a world as harsh as medieval Scotland. As night approaches, the Highlands transform. Shadows lengthen across the slopes, and the first stars prick the deepening sky. Fires flicker in cottages, casting warm light on stone walls and earthen floors. The wind carries stories across the glens, and the distant call of a bagpipe signals the endurance of a culture steeped in history and pride. As you rest, let these sounds, sights, and sensations lull you into calm. Let your mind wander through the misty glens, over craggy peaks, and into the heart of a Scotland that is as brutal as it is breathtaking. Here, in this land of extremes, every life is a story of courage, loyalty, and survival, a testament to the spirit of a people forged in mist, stone, and struggle. Let the Highlands awake within you as you drift toward sleep, for tomorrow. Our journey will carry us deeper into the lives of those who shaped and endured the turbulent world of medieval Scotland. Beneath the misty peaks and rugged glens of medieval Scotland, life moved at a rhythm dictated by nature, necessity, and the ever-present spectre of conflict, while the lords and warriors of the clans inhabited towering castles and fortified halls. The vast majority of people lived a far humbler existence, often enduring hardships that would seem unimaginable to modern eyes. To understand the harshness, and yet the resilience, of daily life, one must first leave behind the romanticized images of knights and royal pageantry and step into the stone cottages, smoky kitchens, and fertile fields of Scotland's common folk. The day began early, often before the first rays of sunlight pierced the foggy Highlands. Smoke from thatched cottages curled upward as households stirred to life. Men and women tended to the fields, their hands raw from winter's frost and summer's labor, coaxing a meager harvest from the rocky soil. Cattle, sheep, and goats roamed nearby, providing sustenance in the form of milk, meat, and wool, while dogs and geese patrolled the perimeters, keeping an eye out for both predators and unwelcome intruders. Children followed closely, learning the skills necessary to maintain their families' fragile livelihoods, planting seeds, herding animals, and mending clothes. In a world where survival demanded constant attention, no task was too small, no effort too trivial. Yet, despite the simplicity of their existence, the lives of common folk were far from safe. Rival clans were never far from the imagination or the horizon. A peaceful day could be shattered by the sound of war horns or the distant clang of steel as raiders descended upon a village. Families would have little time to gather their belongings before fleeing to hidden caves, dense forests, or the fortified keeps of sympathetic neighbors. Children learned early the signs of danger: the distant smoke from burning homes, the sudden silence in the forest, the urgent whispers of neighbors. In a land where the rule of law was fragile and justice often arbitrary, vigilance was a way of life. Disease and famine compounded the dangers. In years when the harvest failed or livestock perished, families faced hunger that could last for months. The cold Highland winters were particularly unforgiving. Thick blankets and sturdy fires were essential, yet often scarce. Illness spread quickly, and without modern medicine, even a small wound or a minor infection could prove fatal. Midwives and local healers offered remedies of herbs and prayers, weaving together practical knowledge with superstition. Yet hope and faith were often the only constants in a life defined by uncertainty. Amid these struggles, community and kinship became a lifeline. Villages were tightly knit. Neighbors depended on one another not only for labor, but also for protection. Festivals, church gatherings, and market days were moments of relief and celebration, brief respites in the relentless demands of survival. Storytellers and bards held a revered place, passing down oral histories and heroic tales that strengthened identity and morale. In the quiet evenings, after the work was done and the animals secured, families would gather by the hearth, sharing food, warmth, and stories that connected them to generations past. It was in these moments of shared humanity that the harshness of life softened, just enough to allow for laughter, hope, and the occasional dream. Women, in particular, bore responsibilities that were both relentless and essential. They managed the household, prepared food, cared for children, tended gardens, and sometimes even assisted with fieldwork. Their labor was the glue that held communities together, yet their lives were often constrained by rigid social expectations. Marriage was a practical arrangement as much as a personal one, often determined by clan alliances or economic necessity, rather than love. Despite these constraints, women found ways to assert influence, whether by running households efficiently, advising family members, or passing down knowledge and traditions to their children. Children grew up quickly, learning the value of hard work, obedience, and loyalty. Education was scarce, mostly informal, and conducted within the home or at the local church. Boys learned trades or farming skills from their fathers, while girls absorbed domestic knowledge from their mothers. Play existed in small doses, often in the form of simple games or mock battles, a reflection of the world they would soon inherit. Even as they laughed and ran across grassy knolls, they absorbed lessons in survival, hierarchy, and clan loyalty. Lessons that would guide them through the brutal realities of adult life. Religion also played a vital role in everyday life. The church was both a moral compass and a social anchor. Peasants attended Mass as often as their work allowed, prayed for bountiful harvests, and sought guidance from local priests. Saints' feast days and holy observances punctuated the calendar, providing structure and meaning amidst uncertainty, in times of illness, crop failure, or raid. The clergy offered both practical advice and spiritual solace, reminding the people that even in a world fraught with suffering, a higher power watched over them. Yet life among the common folk was not solely defined by hardship. The beauty of the Scottish landscape offered moments of awe and wonder. Misty valleys, heather-clad hills, rushing streams, and dense pine forests created a backdrop of untamed splendor. Deer roamed freely, eagles soared overhead, and the cycle of the seasons brought both challenge and reward. Music and song infused daily life, with fiddles, flutes, and pipes accompanying work, celebration, and mourning alike. In these glimpses of beauty, people found joy, even amid adversity. Ultimately, the lives of Scotland's common folk were a study in endurance, community, and quiet heroism. They were the backbone of a society defined by clan loyalty, resilience, and an unwavering will to survive. Their labor-fed armies sustained noble families and maintained the intricate fabric of medieval Scottish life. Though their stories are often overshadowed by tales of kings, warriors, and battles, they are no less essential to understanding the reality of the time. Their courage, ingenuity, and steadfastness illuminate the everyday humanity that persisted even in the harshest of landscapes. As you imagine these people tending their fields, walking through misty glens, and gathering around humble fires at day's end, feel the rhythm of their lives echo in the quiet night, in their struggles, triumphs, and simple joys. We glimpse the enduring spirit of Scotland itself, fierce, resilient, and profoundly human. And as sleep begins to gently claim your mind, allow the stories of these unsung souls to lull you into a calm, reflective dream, connecting past and present through the timeless threads of survival, family, and the quiet persistence of life. In the windswept Highlands and mist-laden glens of medieval Scotland, the clan chief was a figure both revered and feared. To his people, he was the embodiment of authority, a guardian who balanced the responsibilities of leadership with the personal ties of kinship. The clan was a living, breathing network of loyalty, and at its center stood the chief, whose word was law and whose judgment shaped the fortunes of every household within his domain. The chief's authority was rooted not in the distant decrees of kings, but in the tangible loyalty of those he led. Every member of the clan, young or old, noble or common, understood that their survival and prosperity were intimately tied to the wisdom, courage, and fairness of their chief. The clans themselves were more than mere family units. They were political entities, military organizations, and social networks rolled into one. To navigate this intricate system, A chief had to wield both diplomacy and force with equal measure. At the heart of the chief's role was the protection of his people. Highland life was unforgiving. Winters were long and bitter. Crops could fail without warning, and neighboring clans often eyed one another with envy or malice. Raids were common, sometimes motivated by ancient feuds, sometimes by simple need. In this context, a chief's skill in warfare was crucial. He trained and organized his men, often leading them personally into battle, and expected unwavering loyalty in return. But he also had to balance the brutality of conflict with the practicalities of governance. Excessive violence could weaken the clan, alienate allies, or provoke a more powerful adversary. Thus, the life of a chief required a careful blend of strategy, courage, and wisdom. Council meetings, known as clan gatherings, were a central aspect of the chief's governance. These gatherings were held in great halls or open courtyards, depending on the season and the size of the clan. Here, matters of dispute, strategy, and policy were discussed. Elders, warriors, and influential families offered counsel, and the chief's final decision was respected as law. Justice was meted out swiftly and decisively. Disputes over land, cattle, or family honor could not be left unresolved, lest resentment fester and lead to bloodshed. The chief's reputation as a fair and judicious leader was as valuable as his prowess in battle. For a clan united behind a respected chief was far stronger than one divided by mistrust. Ceremony and symbolism were woven into the fabric of a chief's rule. Rituals marked the transitions of power, the initiation of warriors, and the honoring of ancestors. The chief often presided over these ceremonies, donning distinctive attire that signaled both status and authority. The wearing of clan tartans, the display of ancestral weapons, and the reading of genealogies all reinforced the sacred connection between the chief, his lineage, and his people. In these moments, the bonds of loyalty and respect were reaffirmed, and the chief's role as the spiritual as well as temporal leader of the clan was highlighted. But the life of a chief was not only ceremonial or martial, it was intensely personal. Chiefs were expected to care for the welfare of their people, mediate disputes, and ensure the survival of the clan through strategic marriages and alliances. Relationships with neighboring clans required delicate diplomacy. A chief might forge a temporary truce through marriage, only to face renewed hostility if promises were broken. Alliances were fragile, and the chief's ability to navigate the shifting landscape of loyalties could determine the difference between survival and annihilation. The threat of betrayal was never far from a chief's mind. Ambition, envy, and greed could turn allies into enemies overnight. Spies and informants kept the chief informed of potential plots, while loyal retainers executed his will, sometimes with ruthless efficiency. Every decision was weighed against its potential consequences, for a single misstep could endanger not just the chief himself, but his entire clan. Despite the constant pressures, many chiefs displayed remarkable resilience, combining cunning, patience, and decisiveness to maintain authority in a volatile world. Among the most formidable duties of a chief was the defense of honor. In a society where reputation was currency, any insult or injury to the clan demanded redress. Blood feuds, sometimes spanning generations, were a grim testament to this principle. Chiefs were expected to enforce the clan's honor, and failure to do so could erode their authority. Yet, these feuds were not mindless violence. They followed codes of conduct, with rules governing retribution, negotiation, and engagement. Even within the brutal realities of Highland life, there existed a structure that allowed a chief to assert justice while maintaining the clan's cohesion. Education and mentorship were also integral to a chief's role. Sons and younger relatives were trained in the arts of warfare, governance, and diplomacy from a young age. Chiefs imparted the wisdom of experience, teaching the next generation how to lead, negotiate, and navigate the treacherous world of Highland politics. The continuity of the clan depended on these lessons, and many chiefs took this responsibility as seriously as their military or political duties. Life as a Scottish clan chief was thus a tapestry woven from threads of loyalty, duty, and vigilance. It was a life of stark contrasts. Moments of celebration followed by harsh trials, displays of power tempered by the need for fairness, the thrill of victory shadowed by the ever-present spectre of danger. Chiefs had to embody the virtues of courage, wisdom, and honor while remaining keenly aware of their human limitations. Their lives were deeply entwined with those of their people, reflecting the interdependence that defined clan society. As the evening mist settles over the Highlands and the faint glow of firelight flickers through the stone halls, one can almost hear the quiet murmurs of clan members gathered in council, awaiting the chief's word. The weight of leadership presses upon him as heavily as the heathered hills that surround his home. And yet, for all the burdens, there is a profound beauty in this role, a chance to shape the destiny of a people, to honor one's ancestors, and to protect a way of life that has endured against all odds. In the stillness of the Highland night, we begin to understand the complex life of a clan chief, a life of vigilance, duty, and unyielding loyalty. It was a life that demanded sacrifice, courage, and cunning, but one that also offered the profound reward of belonging, honor, and the preservation of a legacy that stretched across generations. As you drift into slumber, let your imagination wander through these rugged landscapes, where the echo of ancient drums and the whispered counsel of elders remind us that leadership is as timeless as the hills themselves. While the clan chief held sway over the Highlands and commanded respect with the weight of tradition and authority, life for the ordinary Scottish villager was far more precarious. Peasants, shepherds, and craftspeople lived in constant negotiation with the elements, their overlords, and the unpredictable tides of fortune. The Highlands were beautiful, no doubt, with mist rolling across the glens, and the haunting cry of distant bagpipes echoing in the valleys. Yet for those who tilled the soil or raised livestock, beauty came intertwined with hardship. Daily life was dictated by the seasons. Spring meant preparing the soil for planting and tending newborn livestock. Summer brought the hope of fertile fields and plentiful harvests, though it also demanded relentless labor under the sun. Autumn required the gathering of crops and the careful storage of food to last through the harsh winter months. And winter, with its biting winds and snow-laden hills, tested endurance, courage, and resourcefulness. Fires were kept burning for warmth and cooking, and every household worked tirelessly to ensure that the cold months did not bring starvation. Most villagers lived in simple stone or timber homes, often with thatched roofs and minimal furnishings. A single hearth served as the center of life, a place to cook, gather, and keep warm. The walls might be adorned with simple tools, woven textiles, or religious symbols, reflecting a combination of necessity, craftsmanship, and faith. Families were large, as survival depended on the labor of every member. From children helping with chores to elders, passing on knowledge of the land, livestock, and local customs, farming was arduous. The soil could be rocky and thin, the weather unpredictable, and the threat of pests or disease ever present. Crops such as barley, oats, and root vegetables formed the backbone of sustenance, while livestock provided meat, milk, and wool. Cattle and sheep were not merely resources. They were the very currency of survival, often serving as a measure of wealth and social standing. Losing livestock to disease, theft, or raids could spell disaster for an entire family. Every day demanded resilience, ingenuity, and a hardiness born from generations of enduring hardship. The omnipresent danger of raids shaped the rhythm of life. Rival clans often clashed, not only over prestige and territory, but also over resources. Villages could be attacked with little warning, crops burned, livestock stolen, and homes destroyed. Families lived in a constant state of vigilance, and even routine journeys to the nearby river or forest could carry hidden risks. Such threats fostered both fear and ingenuity. Villagers dug hidden cellars, reinforced doors, and created escape routes through the surrounding hills and forests. These measures were small defenses against the chaos that could descend without warning. Despite the hardships, community bonds were strong. Villagers relied on one another for labor, protection, and companionship. Festivals and religious ceremonies offered rare reprieves from toil. Moments of joy where music, dance, and feasting connected the people to each other and to the cycles of the land. Shared labor, whether in planting, harvesting, or building, reinforced the interdependence that was crucial for survival. Friendships and family ties were not mere luxuries, they were lifelines, ensuring that no one faced the hardships of Highland life entirely alone. Religion also played a central role in daily existence. Churches and kirks were more than spiritual centers. They were hubs for community gatherings, dispute resolution, and moral guidance. Clergy provided instruction, comfort, and sometimes intercession in conflicts with neighboring clans. Faith helped villagers endure hardships, offering hope and structure in a life that could feel overwhelming in its demands. Religious observances, prayer, and small acts of devotion were woven into the fabric of daily labor, offering both solace and a sense of purpose. Life was not without moments of pleasure. Music and storytelling were cherished traditions, passing down history, legends, and moral lessons. The soft strains of a harp, the haunting melody of a bagpipe, or the simple rhythm of folk songs could lighten weary hearts, even if only for a brief moment. Gatherings around the hearth at night, when the day's labors were done, were opportunities for stories to be shared, lessons to be taught, and laughter to echo through small cottages. These simple pleasures were vital, sustaining the spirit as much as the daily work sustained the body. Yet danger was never far away. Plague, famine, and harsh winters could strike without warning, testing the limits of endurance. Even minor illnesses could prove fatal, and the loss of a single crop could imperil an entire community. Villagers adapted to this precariousness with ingenuity and resourcefulness, cultivating hardy crops, storing food carefully, and relying on traditional remedies and herbal medicine. Knowledge passed down through generations became a crucial tool for survival, blending practical experience with superstition, faith, and communal wisdom. Children were raised with the harsh realities of Highland life in mind. From a young age, they learned the skills necessary for survival: farming, herding, weaving, and simple combat techniques for protection. They were taught the stories of their clan, the importance of loyalty, and the value of resilience. Education was practical and experiential, rather than formal, yet it prepared the young for the challenges of adulthood, ensuring that the legacy of the clan and the knowledge of survival continued. In the midst of this harshness, there existed a quiet dignity. The common folk of medieval Scotland lived intimately connected to the land, to each other, and to a long chain of ancestors whose labor and resilience had shaped their world. Each day, each act of toil, Each small success and setback was a testament to endurance and adaptability. While chiefs navigated the perilous games of power and honor, the villagers ensured that life, in all its fragile beauty, persisted. As night falls over the Highland hills, the sound of distant sheep and the gentle rustle of leaves mingle with the faint whisper of history. Imagine these villagers settling beside the hearth, exhausted yet proud, knowing that their labor sustains life, and their loyalty preserves the clan, and their resilience shapes the course of the generations to come. Their stories are quieter than those of kings and warriors, yet they are no less significant, for without them, the drama of the Highlands could not unfold. And so, as you drift into slumber, picture these humble lives unfolding amidst the rolling hills, misty glens, and whispering forests of medieval Scotland. Their courage, endurance, and quiet determination illuminate the human spirit, reminding us that even in the harshest landscapes, life persists, communities thrive, and stories endure. Tonight, in the stillness of sleep, let the gentle rhythm of the past carry you across the heathered hills, where common folk lived, loved, and survived amidst the wild beauty and unyielding challenge of their world. Amidst the rugged hills, misty valleys, and stone-built villages of medieval Scotland, the clamour of daily life for the common folk existed alongside a more perilous world, the domain of the warrior. The warriors were the protectors, the enforcers, and sometimes the aggressors, bound to their clan with loyalty that ran as deep as the rivers carving the Highlands. From the moment a boy could lift a wooden sword or sling a stone, he was being prepared for a life in which the blade and the shield would define his place in the world. A warrior's training was relentless. Even from childhood, boys learned to run, climb, and endure cold, hunger, and fatigue. They practiced with wooden weapons, honing coordination, strength, and agility. As they grew, they were introduced to the real steel of swords, axes, and spears. Their instructors, often older warriors or family members, instilled in them the discipline and courage necessary to face the dangers of raids, battles, and personal duels. Every day was a lesson not only in combat but in honor, strategy, and survival. Failure or cowardice could bring shame to both the individual and the clan, and so the warrior's path demanded mental resilience as much as physical prowess. The life of a warrior was intertwined with that of the clan. Chiefs relied on their fighters to protect their lands, enforce their will, and secure their position among rival clans. Warriors were not merely hired swords, they were living symbols of loyalty and power. Their reputation was carefully maintained through feats of courage, skill in battle, and unwavering allegiance. In a world where betrayal could cost lives, trust among warriors was sacred. Camaraderie and the bonds forged in training or battle became unbreakable. Armor and weaponry reflected both practicality and status. Chainmail, leather, and shields were essential for survival. But the design and decoration also conveyed the warrior's rank and clan affiliation. Swords were often heirlooms, passed down through generations, their blades imbued with both history and symbolic meaning. Shields bore the colors, emblems, and stories of a clan, providing not only protection, but also a declaration of identity on the battlefield. Every piece of equipment had to be maintained meticulously, for a dull blade or a weak shield could mean the difference between life and death. Battles themselves were chaotic, noisy, and terrifying. Clans met in open fields or narrow passes, sometimes sparked by territorial disputes, revenge, or the whims of a chief. Warriors fought with ferocity, often in close quarters, where the clang of steel, the cries of the wounded, and the smell of blood and smoke filled the air. Strategy played a crucial role: ambushes, feigned retreats, and knowledge of the terrain often decided the outcome as much as the strength of the warriors themselves. Survival depended on courage, skill, and the support of comrades who would fight at your side or die trying. Raids were a daily reality. Swift attacks on rival villages or enemy holdings could yield cattle, resources, and prestige. These were dangerous undertakings, requiring stealth, speed, and careful planning. Warriors learned to navigate forests, hills, and rivers, striking quickly and retreating before reinforcements arrived. Success brought honor and rewards, while failure could result in death or captivity. These raids were not just acts of aggression. They were deeply tied to the survival and prosperity of the clan. Every cattle taken, every resource secured, reinforced the strength of the warrior's own people. Yet, despite the violence, there was a code of conduct that many warriors observed. Honor dictated behavior both on and off the battlefield. A warrior was expected to protect the weak, respect the clergy, and uphold the traditions of his clan. Betrayal, cowardice, or cruelty could tarnish a reputation permanently. Even amid the brutality, there was a sense of fairness, a recognition that strength alone was insufficient without the guiding hand of principle. This code did not eliminate cruelty or bloodshed, but it provided structure and identity in a world where life was often uncertain and fleeting. Women and families also played roles in supporting warriors. Mothers, sisters, and wives prepared provisions, tended to the sick and wounded, and maintained the home while men were away on campaigns or raids. They were the quiet strength behind the warriors, ensuring that the clan endured even when the battlefield demanded sacrifices. Their courage was different, but no less vital. The emotional resilience and practical care they provided allowed warriors to focus on combat, knowing their families were safe and the clan's home front secure. The relationship between warrior and chief was profound. A chief's authority was legitimized not merely through heritage or inheritance, but through the loyalty and competence of his fighters. A warrior pledged his life to the chief, and in return, the chief ensured protection, provision, and honor. This bond created a chain of responsibility that extended through the clan hierarchy, shaping decisions in war and peace. Chiefs often led warriors personally into battle, demonstrating courage and reinforcing the mutual respect that held the clan together. In quieter moments, away from raids and battlefields, warriors were also men of skill and craft. They hunted for food, maintained their weapons, and practiced music or storytelling. Songs of past victories, tales of legendary heroes, and lessons from the elders became part of the training, reinforcing cultural identity and moral guidance. These quiet practices nurtured patience, reflection, and a deep connection to the land and the people they protected. And yet, the life of a warrior was shadowed by mortality. Many did not survive long into adulthood. Wounds, disease, and the unpredictability of war were constant threats. Yet those who endured became living repositories of wisdom, skill, and history. Their experiences shaped the next generation, instilling resilience, courage, and the understanding that the freedom and security of their people depended on vigilance and sacrifice. As night falls over the Highlands, imagine these warriors returning from the day's training, tending to their weapons, or quietly sharing stories by the hearth. The smoke curls upward, blending with the mist that drifts across the hills. Their eyes carry the weight of responsibility. Their hands bear the marks of labor and battle, and their hearts remain steadfast to the people and land they serve. In this quiet, away from the clash of swords, the true measure of a warrior is revealed, not in bloodshed alone, but in loyalty, courage, and the enduring commitment to something greater than oneself. as you drift towards sleep. Let the image of these Highland warriors linger, a reminder that courage is cultivated, honor is earned, and resilience can flourish even in the harshest of landscapes. Their lives, though often perilous, illuminate the intricate dance of duty, loyalty, and the human spirit in the medieval Scottish Highlands, carrying you gently into dreams of mist, covered hills, and the faint echo of distant battle horns. As the sun dipped behind the jagged peaks of the Highlands, the valleys below were draped in an ethereal twilight, a mingling of fading golden light and creeping shadows. In medieval Scotland, this shifting light was not merely beautiful, it was portentous. The people of the Highlands believed that the hours between sunset and darkness were thick with spirits, restless souls, and creatures from other realms, each carrying the potential for mischief or worse. Life in these misted lands was therefore as much about navigating the unseen as it was about cultivating the fields or defending one's clan. The Highlanders' beliefs were woven into the fabric of daily life. Each household maintained a quiet vigilance, often employing small rituals to ensure protection. A hearth fire was more than warmth, it was a barrier against wandering spirits. Livestock were blessed with whispered incantations, and travelers rarely set out without carrying a talisman, a small token meant to shield them from the unknown. Even the strongest warriors, those who faced rival clans in battle, took heed of these invisible forces. No sword alone could guarantee safety when misfortune lurked unseen in the mists of the glen. Central to the Highland imagination were the wise women, or Bean CD, who possessed knowledge passed down through generations. These women, often older members of the clan, were both revered and feared. They tended to the sick with herbal remedies, interpreted omens, and, some whispered, could curse those who wronged them. Their authority was never questioned lightly, for it was believed that their understanding of the natural and supernatural worlds gave them a form of power that could rival even the chief himself. Farmers and warriors alike sought their counsel before journeys or battles, leaving offerings of bread, milk, or even small coins to gain favor or avert calamity. One such figure was Morag, a wise woman from a remote glen, whose reputation stretched across mountains and lochs. Families would travel days through rugged terrain to seek her guidance, whether for matters of health, crop fertility, or protection against hostile clans. Her knowledge of herbs was unparalleled. She could brew teas that eased pain or potions that brought sleep to those tortured by fever or grief. But it was her ability to interpret omens that made her truly sought after. The sudden cry of a hawk, the appearance of a black cat, or even the angle of smoke rising from a neighbor's hearth could all bear messages. And Morag's interpretations often swayed the decisions of both peasant and noble alike. Yet superstition was not merely practical. It infused the land itself with a sense of mystery. Certain hills were avoided at night, thought to be inhabited by fairies who might abduct a careless traveler. Forests held secrets that could change with the shifting seasons. And stones, rivers, and even the wind were believed to carry voices from the past. Every footfall on the heathered ground was measured, every glance at a flickering shadow taken seriously. Children were taught from a young age to respect these unseen forces, to honor the old beliefs, even as the church sought to impose its own doctrines. In this world, the sacred and the supernatural coexisted uneasily, and neither could be ignored. The interplay between superstition and survival was especially clear when it came to healing. Illnesses, often misunderstood, were attributed to curses, evil spirits, or divine punishment. Morag and other wise women served as the first line of defense, blending their knowledge of plants with chants, rituals, and symbolic gestures meant to drive away malevolent forces. A feverish child might be wrapped in a cloth blessed with juniper and salted water, while an ailing cow could be led in a circuit around the barn 3 times, reciting protective phrases. These rituals, repeated carefully and with faith, offered reassurance and a sense of control in a world where mortality was high and disease common. Superstitions extended into matters of honor and revenge as well. Clan leaders often consulted omens before taking action against rivals, believing that divine or spiritual signs could determine the outcome of a raid or a battle. The advice of a wise woman or seer could sway a chief's decision to attack or retreat, settle a dispute, or grant clemency. Even seemingly minor events, a sudden storm, an unusually large animal crossing one's path, could be interpreted as a sign, prompting caution or daring. In such a land, where survival depended on attentiveness to both seen and unseen forces, superstition was not merely folklore, it was a practical tool of life. Nightfall brought its own peculiar challenges. As darkness enveloped the glens, the villagers would lock their doors and shutter windows, whispering prayers for protection. Children were tucked into beds with charms dangling above them, while adults checked the perimeter of their homes for signs of intrusion, human or otherwise. The wind whistling through the valleys, so often romanticized in modern tales, was then understood as a messenger or a warning. Fires were kept burning through the night, both for warmth and for security against the spirits thought to roam freely after sunset. Sleep was a cautious surrender, and dreams were often interpreted as omens of what might come. Yet amid this shadowed existence, moments of beauty and comfort persisted. The same mists that carried whispers of danger could also hold the colors of dawn in impossible shades of pink and gold. Rivers glimmered under the moonlight, forests hummed with life, and the clan's bonds provided a sense of belonging in a harsh and uncertain world. The Highlanders' deep respect for the land, the seasons, and the mysteries that lingered in every glen fostered resilience and ingenuity, shaping a people capable of enduring centuries of hardship. Life in these highlands was not merely survival, it was a careful, attentive dance with forces beyond human control, both tangible and ethereal. As the chapter of shadows and superstition closes, it becomes clear that medieval Scotland was a land defined not only by the clash of clans or the threat of invasion, but also by the unseen world woven tightly into daily life. Every decision, every step, and every glance at the sky carried significance. The tales of wise women, of spirits and omens, remind us that survival in the Highlands required more than courage or strength. It demanded awareness, respect, and a delicate negotiation with a world that was at once beautiful, mysterious, and unsettling. And so, as the stars finally emerge over the peaks and the night settles over the glens, we leave the shadows behind, carrying with us an understanding of a people whose lives were inseparable from the whispers of the unseen. In the silence of the Highlands, one can almost hear echoes of the past, the rustling of leaves, the cries of distant creatures, and the soft, reassuring murmurs of the wise women who once guided their kin through a world full of both wonder and dread. In this delicate balance of light and shadow, superstition and survival, we glimpse the heart of medieval Scotland, a world where every day was lived fully, cautiously, and deeply attuned to the mysteries that surrounded it. The mornings in medieval Scotland were gentle yet unyielding, especially in the rugged Highlands, where life demanded both endurance and attentiveness. As dawn broke, the first golden light would seep through mist-laden valleys, illuminating the rolling hills and stone cottages that dotted the landscape. For the common folk, these early hours were not merely a beginning. They were a survival ritual, a time when every moment counted towards sustaining life, in a land that offered beauty and bounty, but no forgiveness for idleness. Inside a typical Highland home, the hearth was the heart of the household, radiating warmth and providing the focal point for both labor and leisure. The smell of peat smoke and baking bread mingled with the damp scent of the surrounding moors, a sensory constant in every dwelling. Families huddled close to the fire to warm themselves, especially during the bitter winters when snow blanketed the hills and winds cut through even the sturdiest of stone walls. The hearth was where meals were prepared, stories were shared, and children learned the lessons of both survival and morality through observation and instruction. Here, everyday life intertwined with culture, myth, and practicality, creating a rhythm as old as the glens themselves. The tasks of daily life were relentless. Men and women rose with the sun to tend to fields, animals, and chores that could not wait. Fields had to be plowed, seed sown, and crops protected from the elements and wandering beasts. Livestock, cows, sheep, goats, and chickens required constant attention, feeding, milking, and care that could not be deferred. Water had to be drawn from streams or wells, firewood chopped, and tools mended. Life was laborious, each day demanding its own measure of skill and stamina, yet the work was accompanied by a deep connection to the land. Highlanders understood the contours of their glens, the temperament of the soil, and the habits of their livestock. Knowledge of the natural world was not merely practical, it was vital for survival. Within this daily toil, the presence of superstition and faith remained ever strong. The first plough in a field might be blessed with a whispered charm, ensuring that spirits did not impede the growth of crops. Milking cows often involved small rituals to guarantee fertility and abundance, while harvests were celebrated with gratitude to both God and the unseen forces that guided the land. The intertwining of belief and labor offered reassurance in a life constantly shadowed by uncertainty, whether from the weather, illness, or the threat of rival clans. Work was more than productivity, it was a covenant with the earth, with tradition, and with the unseen guardians of the Highlands. Meals were simple but sustaining. Bread made from oats or barley, porridge thickened with cream, and stews simmered with whatever vegetables and meat were available formed the backbone of the Highland diet. Food was never wasted, for scarcity was a constant reminder of life's precariousness. Every ingredient carried both nourishment and a story. The barley from fields, tended for generations, the herbs gathered from familiar woods, the milk of cows cared for from calfhood to maturity. Even the act of eating was an acknowledgement of community and labor, a moment when the fruits of relentless work were quietly appreciated. Children learned early to respect the food on their plates, understanding that every morsel represented hours of labor, cooperation, and survival. Education, too, existed in forms both formal and informal. Few children could read, and fewer still had access to books or scholarly instruction. Instead, knowledge was passed orally, through stories, songs, and family teachings, tales of clan heroes' moral lessons, and the cautionary accounts of those who had suffered misfortune filled the evenings, shaping the values and imaginations of the young. Even mundane skills, such as crafting tools, weaving cloth, or preparing herbal remedies, were taught at the hearth, where practical instruction merged seamlessly with storytelling. In this way, the traditions, culture, and survival skills of the Highlands were preserved and transmitted across generations. Social gatherings, though less frequent, were moments of respite and joy. Markets, fairs, and clan gatherings provided opportunities for trade, celebration, and alliance building. Music and dance played central roles in these occasions, with bagpipes echoing across hills and dancers moving in intricate patterns that echoed the rhythms of life itself. Food, drink, and laughter punctuated these gatherings, offering a counterbalance to the constant pressures of daily labor and the lurking threats of disease, starvation, and conflict. Even brief moments of communal festivity reinforced bonds of trust, loyalty, and identity, essential qualities in a land where clan allegiance could determine life or death. Evening brought a return to the hearth, where light dimmed and shadows deepened within the home. The work of the day concluded, families shared stories of their successes, failures, and minor triumphs. Candles or rushlights flickered against the stone walls, illuminating faces lined with toil, but softened by the warmth of shared company. Prayers were said, blessings offered for health, protection, and fertility, and the quiet presence of ancestors, honored through tales and mementos, permeated the room. For children, bedtime was an invitation to rest and to imagine a world larger than the hearth, shaped by both history and folklore. In the Highlands, life was cyclical, dominated by the changing seasons and the unyielding demands of nature. Spring brought planting and new beginnings, summer, the anticipation of growth, autumn, the harvest and reflection, and winter, endurance and preparation. Every season carried challenges and rewards, joys and dangers. And yet, within these cycles, the Highlanders found a profound rhythm and order, an understanding that life, though harsh, was sustained by perseverance, knowledge, and community. The simplicity of daily life belied its complexity. Survival required physical strength, intelligence, and emotional resilience. As night fully settled, the fires dwindled to embers, and the sounds of the glens shifted. Owls called, foxes rustled in underbrush, and the distant howl of wolves reminded the people of nature's omnipresence. Within the cottages, families rested, lulled by the warmth of the hearth and the stories that had carried them through the day. Sleep was both recovery and preparation, a sacred pause before another cycle of labor, ritual, and care began. In this quiet interlude, the rhythms of Highland life merged with the timeless landscapes that cradled them, creating a world at once demanding and strangely soothing. And so, the daily life of the Highlands, with its blend of labor, superstition, and communal intimacy, emerges not merely as survival, but as a testament to human resilience. Each meal, each chore, each story told by the fire, reinforced bonds of kinship and clan, anchored the people to the land, and nurtured a sense of purpose in a world defined by challenge. Here, amid misted valleys, rugged hills, and ancient stone walls, life unfolded in a delicate balance of effort, belief, and quiet beauty. A world that demanded attention to the smallest details, yet offered moments of enduring comfort. As the sun climbed over the jagged peaks and misted valleys of medieval Scotland, the serene beauty of the Highlands often belied a darker reality. Life here was inseparable from conflict. For centuries, clans shaped their identities, not just through kinship and tradition, but through the persistent presence of rivalry, territorial disputes, and war. Even the gentlest landscapes, rolling hills, shimmering lochs, and quiet glens, concealed the scars of battles fought in the name of honor, revenge, or survival. These conflicts, while brutal, were woven into the daily existence of Highlanders, influencing everything from childhood games to the rites of adulthood, and from the quiet of hearthside evenings to the charged atmosphere of clan gatherings. The nature of warfare in the Highlands was intimate, personal, and often sudden. Unlike the organized armies of Europe's lowlands, Highland battles relied heavily on the intimate knowledge of the terrain, swift mobilization of clansmen, and strategic use of small forces. When disputes arose over land, livestock, or perceived insults, clans would rally quickly, gathering warriors who were as much farmers and herders as soldiers. The boundaries between home and battlefield were blurred. A family's fields could become the front lines, a glen the site of an ambush, and a village the stage for revenge raids that might claim lives or livelihoods in an instant. At the heart of this martial culture was the concept of honor. Each clan chief bore not only the responsibility for the welfare of his people, but also the duty to defend their reputation. A slight from a rival clan, a stolen cow, a disputed marriage, or even a whispered insult could escalate into a full-scale feud, with vengeance considered a moral imperative. Warriors trained from boyhood in the arts of combat, wielding the claymore, mastering the dirk, and navigating the Highlands with agility and stealth. Strength, courage, and loyalty were the currency of respect, and the reputation of a clan often depended more on its readiness to fight than on its agricultural or economic prowess. Raids were a central feature of Highland warfare. Swift, surprise attacks allowed clans to seize cattle, plunder supplies, and assert dominance without engaging in prolonged battles. These raids were as much about resource acquisition as they were about demonstrating power. For the common people, the threat of a raid was a constant companion. Villages were fortified as best they could, lookouts stationed on hilltops, and weapons kept within reach. Even during periods of apparent peace, tension lingered, for the feuds of the Highlands were generational, often extending across decades and sometimes centuries, as each act of violence demanded response in kind. A young boy growing up in such an environment learned early that survival meant vigilance, and that the bonds of loyalty to his family and clan were inseparable from his own life. One of the most infamous of these feuds was that between Clan Campbell and Clan MacDonald. Its roots traced back to the early 14th century, when lands in Argyll were granted to the Campbells as rewards for their support of Robert the Bruce during the Wars of Scottish Independence. The MacDonalds, who had long controlled these territories, regarded this as an unforgivable affront. Over time, disputes escalated into raids, skirmishes, and full-scale battles, leaving devastation across the Western Highlands. The feud reached a particularly notorious peak in 1646 with the massacre of Glencoe, where Campbell forces, acting on orders of the Scottish government, killed members of the MacDonald clan in their homes while they slept. This act cemented a legacy of hatred and vengeance that would endure for generations, highlighting the devastating human cost of clan loyalty and the ways in which external powers could manipulate these rivalries for political ends. Despite the violence, the Highlanders adhered to a strict code of conduct, even in war. Honor dictated the treatment of captives, the spoils of battle, and the obligations of those who pledged loyalty. In many cases, blood feuds could be settled through negotiation, marriage alliances, or compensation, demonstrating a nuanced understanding of justice and diplomacy within a context that often seemed dominated by violence. War was never random. It was bound by rules, strategy, and a shared understanding of communal norms, even when these norms included vengeance and retribution. The psychological toll of perpetual conflict was profound. Families lived with a constant awareness that at any moment, the glens might erupt in violence. Children grew up hearing stories of raids and battles, of fallen warriors and heroic deeds, absorbing both fear and admiration. Women managed households with vigilance, preparing for sudden disruptions, tending to injured warriors, and maintaining supplies that could sustain their families through prolonged absences or sieges. Men, meanwhile, balanced the responsibilities of farming, herding, and defending their homes, fully aware that a single misstep could cost lives or livelihoods. The Highlands, beautiful and tranquil by day, could transform overnight into a theater of terror, demonstrating the precarious balance between peace and chaos. Yet, there was a rhythm to this turbulence. Raids and battles, while frightening, were often spaced by periods of quiet labor, storytelling, and communal gatherings. The cyclical nature of conflict allowed families to rebuild, heal, and teach the next generation both practical skills and moral lessons. Music, dance, and festivals punctuated life, offering relief from the pressures of survival and reminding Highlanders of the joys of community, even in times of war. The people maintained a deep connection to the land, their faith, and the traditions that gave structure to their lives. Through it all, the Highlanders developed resilience and adaptability. They learned to navigate both the physical terrain and the complex social landscape of alliances, rivalries, and obligations. They mastered the art of observation, strategy, and endurance, qualities that allowed them to endure centuries of hardship while preserving their identity and culture. In this way, the very violence that seemed to define their existence also shaped the qualities that would sustain them through the most difficult of times. As night fell across the Highlands, the echoes of battles past seemed to mingle with the quiet rustle of leaves, the distant call of an owl, and the whisper of the wind across heather-clad hills. Within the cottages and stone homes, families settled by the hearth, telling stories of bravery, loss, and cunning strategy. The memories of conflict were preserved not only in history, but in the living consciousness of the people, shaping values, expectations, and behaviors. For the Highlander, life was inseparable from the lessons of war, but within these lessons lay both caution and courage, fear and pride, danger and resilience, a tapestry woven into the very fabric of existence. Thus, the story of clan conflict in medieval Scotland is not merely one of bloodshed and vengeance. It is a story of human endurance, strategic thinking, and social cohesion, a tale in which every battle, every raid, and every act of loyalty played a role in shaping a culture that would survive centuries of hardship. In understanding the shadows of the battlefield, we glimpse the enduring spirit of the Highland people, their capacity for courage, and the intricate balance of fear, duty, and honor that defined life in the rugged lands they called home. The morning sun slowly crept over the rugged peaks of the Scottish Highlands, casting long shadows across glens dotted with stone cottages and smoke curling from humble hearths, while tales of raids, battles, and feuds often dominate the history of medieval Scotland. The day-to-day lives of those within the clans were governed as much by routine, toil, and tradition as by conflict. Life in a clan was a delicate balance of survival, loyalty, and community, each member contributing to the shared well-being while navigating the uncertainties of the wider world. From the earliest hours of the day, the rhythms of existence were dictated by the land and the seasons. Peasants and warriors alike awoke to tend fields, herd livestock, and gather essential resources. In a time before mechanization, work was labor-intensive, demanding both physical strength and perseverance. Men plowed fields with oxen, repaired stone walls, and maintained the intricate network of dikes that divided grazing lands. Women were equally industrious, spinning wool, baking bread, brewing ale, and preparing preserves to last through the harsh winter months. Children learned these skills early, assisting in tasks suited to their age, while absorbing lessons in resilience, and responsibility that would prepare them for the demands of adulthood. Despite the hard labor, there was a rhythm and order to daily life that provided a sense of stability amidst the ever-present uncertainty of Highland existence. Work and rest followed the sun's movements, and communal activities often punctuated the day. Neighbors helped one another during harvests, livestock migrations, and construction projects, reinforcing bonds that were essential not only for efficiency but for survival. The clan functioned as a tight, knit community. Individual well-being was inseparable from collective prosperity. These bonds of mutual dependence were reinforced by shared customs, storytelling, and participation in religious and cultural rituals, all of which helped instill a sense of identity and belonging from a young age. Mealtimes, while simple by modern standards, offered opportunities for communal gathering and the sharing of news, advice, or tales of valor. Breakfasts might consist of porridge or oatcakes, accompanied by milk or water drawn from nearby streams. Hearty soups and stews sustained laborers throughout the day, while evenings were often marked by the baking of bread, the smoking of meats, and the preparation of ale or mead. Despite scarcity and the constant threat of famine, Highland families valued these shared meals as a time to connect, to impart wisdom, and to celebrate small moments of abundance. Education in the traditional sense was rare, yet learning occurred continuously within the clan. Boys and girls absorbed knowledge by observing elders, participating in daily tasks, and listening to stories that blended history, legend, and practical guidance. They learned navigation through dense forests, the identification of edible plants, the care of animals, and the subtle art of diplomacy required to maintain peace or settle disputes within the clan. Moral lessons, social expectations, and respect for authority were woven into these teachings, ensuring that each generation understood both its rights and responsibilities. The spiritual life of the clan was equally integral to daily existence. The church exerted significant influence, its teachings shaping not only moral understanding but practical behavior. Clergy visited villages to perform baptisms, weddings, and funerals, and churches served as centers for education and social gatherings. Religious festivals punctuated the year, offering respite from work while reinforcing shared values and the community's connection to the divine. Prayer and devotion were incorporated into daily routines, from morning blessings to evening reflections, providing comfort and structure in a world where uncertainty and danger were ever-present companions. Social hierarchy within the clan was clear, yet flexible in ways that emphasized both duty and merit. At the top, the chief oversaw the welfare, security, and governance of the clan. He mediated disputes, led military campaigns, and ensured that laws and customs were upheld. Below him, sub-chiefs, warriors, and skilled laborers executed these directives while contributing their expertise and strength. Ordinary families maintained their roles as farmers, herders, craftsmen, and domestic workers, yet each member's contribution was valued. Loyalty to the clan was the ultimate currency. Acts of bravery, wisdom, or diligence could elevate status and earn lasting respect, while betrayal or negligence could result in shame, ostracization, or even punishment. Daily life was not devoid of leisure or culture. Music, dance, and storytelling provided balance to the constant labor and occasional violence. Bagpipes, harps, and fiddles accompanied communal gatherings, weddings, and seasonal festivals, while tales of legendary warriors, mystical creatures, and heroic ancestors conveyed history and moral guidance. These cultural expressions reinforced clan identity, offering both entertainment and subtle lessons in courage, honor, and resilience. Storytelling also served as a bridge between generations, ensuring that wisdom, strategy, and experience were preserved even as younger members prepared to face the challenges of their own lives. Nevertheless, life within the clan could be precarious. The seasons were unpredictable, and a failed harvest or harsh winter could bring famine and hardship. Disease, while less understood, posed constant threats, spreading rapidly through crowded cottages and villages. Raids or disputes with rival clans could erupt without warning, forcing families to flee, hide, or defend themselves. In these moments, the solidarity and organization of the clan became essential. Every member had a role to play, whether in battle, logistics, or sustaining morale. Survival depended on preparation, vigilance, and the ability to respond quickly to changing circumstances. Amidst these challenges, the people of the Highlands cultivated resilience, adaptability, and a profound connection to their environment. They learned to read weather patterns, to hunt and gather, to craft tools, and to navigate both the physical and social landscapes of their world. They experienced fear, loss, and struggle, but also joy, triumph, and love. The rhythms of the land and the cycles of the seasons dictated life's pace, while the bonds of kinship, community, and tradition provided purpose and meaning. In every action, from tending fields to defending territory, Highlanders were reminded that survival and legacy were inseparable. As dusk settled across the hills, the sounds of labor gave way to the quiet murmur of families gathered around fires. The smell of smoke, bread, and stew mingled with the crisp Highland air, while children listened to elders recount tales of bravery, cunning, and endurance. The lessons of the day, hard work, loyalty, courage, and care for one another, were gently reinforced, preparing the next generation to navigate both the beauty and the danger of their world. Life within the clan, with all its demands and rituals, was at once grounding and sustaining, offering a sense of order in a land defined by uncertainty. In understanding the daily existence of medieval Scottish clans, we glimpse the texture of a world where survival was intimately tied to family, loyalty, and tradition. Here, amid toil, ritual, and the ever-present hum of nature, the people forged lives of meaning and resilience. The rhythm of their days, marked by work, devotion, and community, provided a steady heartbeat in a land often defined by turbulence. It is within this quiet diligence, the care for kin, and the cultivation of skill and knowledge, that the enduring spirit of the Highlands emerges. A spirit that would carry the people through both the joys and trials of centuries to come. As dawn broke over the Scottish Highlands, painting the sky in muted golds and soft pinks, the landscape seemed serene, almost untouched by the strife and turmoil that often defined human life in medieval Scotland. Yet, for the clans living amid these rugged hills and deep glens, the beauty of the land belied the harsh realities that the seasons brought. Life was intrinsically tied to nature, and the rhythm of the year dictated every aspect of existence. From planting and harvest to raiding, defending territory, and preparing for the harsh winter months, spring was a time of cautious optimism. The thawing snow revealed fertile soil, and the first shoots of barley, oats, and wheat signaled the start of a new cycle of labor and hope. Livestock that had been kept in sheltered enclosures during the winter were led to pasture, grazing on the tender grass that began to carpet the hills. The sounds of bleating sheep, lowing cattle, and the occasional crow of a rooster filled the air, blending with the whispers of streams swollen by melting snow. For clan families, spring meant both opportunity and preparation, sowing crops, repairing stone walls, and tending to orchards and herb gardens. Any delay or miscalculation could imperil the food supply for months to come, making diligence a matter of survival. Summer brought the intensification of work and the promise of abundance. Fields needed constant attention, weeds had to be removed, and water sources carefully managed. Peasants worked from sunrise to sunset, while men of the clan might also be called to defend their territory or support larger campaigns, depending on the whims of their chief. In the Highlands, summer was also a time for festivals and gatherings, when clans would come together to celebrate seasonal milestones, conduct trade, and renew alliances. These communal moments provided relief from labor while reinforcing loyalty, identity, and social cohesion. Yet even during these celebrations, there was an undercurrent of vigilance, for raiders or rival clans could appear at any time. Autumn was the most critical season in the Highland calendar. Harvest time determined whether the clan would endure the long winter in relative security or face hunger and scarcity. Fields were reaped with scythes and sickles, grains were threshed, and food stores were prepared meticulously. Every grain of barley, oat, or wheat represented countless hours of labor and the promise of sustenance. Fruit trees were harvested, root vegetables dug from the soil, and animals were slaughtered or preserved for the months ahead. Autumn also marked the time for gathering firewood and reinforcing homes, as winter's chill would soon descend upon the Highlands. The air grew crisper, the nights longer, and the landscape transformed into a tapestry of gold, orange, and crimson, a reminder that the end of one cycle was the precursor to the next. Winter, perhaps the most feared season, was both a test of endurance and a time for reflection. Snow blanketed the hills and valleys, cutting off many villages from travel and communication. Harsh winds and biting cold made even the simplest tasks difficult. While shortages of food and fuel required careful rationing, families huddled around hearths, cooking, mending clothing, and telling stories to pass the long nights. Wolves, foxes, and other predators became bolder, and clans had to remain vigilant against attacks on livestock or settlements. The isolation of winter fostered resilience, patience, and a deep reliance on communal bonds. It was during these months that the clan's cohesion, preparation, and foresight were tested most severely. Beyond the predictable cycles, the seasons brought sudden, sometimes catastrophic events. Late frosts could destroy crops, early storms could sweep away livestock, and flooding rivers could devastate villages. Disease often spread more rapidly in the crowded conditions of winter, and harsh summers sometimes led to drought and famine. In this unforgiving environment, the skill of clan elders, the experience of seasoned farmers, and the foresight of leaders were invaluable. Generations learned to observe the natural world closely, monitoring the phases of the moon, the patterns of birds, and the behavior of livestock, to anticipate and respond to the challenges of each season. Knowledge of weather patterns, soil conditions, and animal behavior was essential for survival and passed down carefully from one generation to the next. Yet the seasons also shaped culture, belief, and ritual. Spring festivals honored renewal and fertility, summer gatherings celebrated abundance. Autumn rituals expressed gratitude for the harvest, and winter ceremonies emphasized endurance, reflection, and hope for the coming year. These seasonal rites were infused with both spiritual and practical significance, reinforcing the connection between humans, the land, and the divine. Observing and honoring these natural cycles allowed the clans to navigate the uncertainties of life while maintaining a sense of order and meaning. They reminded the people that even in hardship, there was rhythm, continuity, and promise. Children in the Highlands grew up intimately acquainted with the influence of the seasons. They learned which crops thrived in certain soils, how to track the movement of animals, and which plants and herbs could provide food or medicine. They observed the stars to predict weather changes and developed an innate understanding of the interplay between climate, topography, and survival. Play often doubled as preparation for adult responsibilities, whether by herding sheep, gathering firewood, or assisting with seasonal tasks. In doing so, young Highlanders internalized the lessons of resilience, patience, and adaptation that were crucial for life in a land both beautiful and unforgiving. Even the warriors of the clans were shaped by the seasons. Campaigns and raids were rarely undertaken in winter, when travel was treacherous and supplies scarce. Spring and summer were preferred for movement and conflict, while autumn required careful planning to avoid jeopardizing food stores. The landscape itself influenced strategy. Mist-filled valleys, dense forests, and rugged hills could conceal warriors or force engagements in treacherous terrain. Understanding nature's rhythms was therefore as important for survival in battle as it was in daily life, underscoring the deep interconnection between humans and their environment in medieval Scotland. As night fell and the Highlands were bathed in the soft glow of the moon, the land seemed to exhale. Fires flickered in cottages, smoke drifted lazily into the cold air, and the sounds of nocturnal animals echoed through glens. The lessons of the day, of seasons endured and observed, of labor and vigilance, lingered in every heart. Life in the Highlands was dictated not only by human endeavor and clan loyalty, but by the inexorable passage of time and the cycles of nature. To thrive required harmony with both, a respect for the land's power, a reverence for its rhythms, and an understanding that survival depended on adaptation, foresight, and unity. In contemplating the influence of the Highland seasons, one begins to understand how deeply intertwined the lives of the Scottish clans were with the natural world. Every aspect of existence, from farming and hunting to culture and combat, was influenced by the changing months, the weather, and the demands of the environment. These cycles taught endurance, patience, and humility, shaping the character of individuals and the identity of the clan. The Highlands, with all their beauty and danger, were a teacher as stern as any chief, and those who learned its lessons could endure both the hardships and the fleeting moments of abundance that defined life in medieval Scotland. As the first rays of morning sunlight spilled over the misty Highlands, the land appeared tranquil, almost untouched. Yet beneath the serene surface lay simmering tensions that could erupt at any moment. In medieval Scotland, life was not only shaped by nature, but also by the rigid codes of honor and loyalty that governed the clans. The bonds of kinship were powerful, but so too were the rivalries, grudges, and ancient feuds that defined Scottish society. For many Highlanders, existence was a constant negotiation between survival, loyalty, and the ever-present shadow of revenge. The roots of clan feuds were deeply entwined with the social, political, and economic structures of the Highlands. Land was scarce and precious, a source of sustenance, security, and prestige. Rival claims over territory could ignite hostility that lasted generations, passed down from father to son as a sacred duty. Insults, thefts, and slights, whether real or perceived, were taken with deadly seriousness, for to ignore an offense was to invite dishonor. A man's reputation, his family's honor, and the respect of neighboring clans depended on swift and decisive action. These cycles of retaliation created a landscape where trust was fragile and vigilance was a daily necessity. One of the most notorious feuds was that between Clan MacDonald and Clan Campbell. Though both families wielded immense power, Their rivalry was fueled by a mixture of political ambition, territorial disputes, and historical grievances. The roots of this animosity stretched back centuries, intensified by the interference of outside forces, such as the English crown, which often exploited clan rivalries to maintain control over the Highlands. What began as a dispute over land soon escalated into violence, raids and massacres, leaving scars on both sides that would endure for generations. For common folk, life within a feuding landscape was unpredictable and perilous. Families lived in constant awareness of potential attacks, often fortifying homes and hiding valuables to avoid theft or destruction. Farmers could see their fields destroyed overnight, livestock stolen, and villages burned, leaving communities destitute. Children learned early to recognize the signs of danger: smoke on the horizon, distant horns signaling an approaching party, or the sudden disappearance of neighbors. Survival required both caution and courage, as the line between defender and victim was often perilously thin. Despite the ever-present threat, the feuds were governed by an unspoken code of conduct. Honor demanded retaliation, yet excessive cruelty or senseless bloodshed could tarnish a clan's reputation. Leaders balanced the need for vengeance with the necessity of preserving the strength and resources of their people. Raids were carefully planned, timed for advantage, and executed with precision. Even in acts of violence, there was strategy, ritual, and an acute awareness of consequences. These were not mindless skirmishes, but rather calculated measures within a strict framework of social expectations. The psychological toll of feuding was immense. Adults bore the burden of defending their kin, teaching the next generation, and maintaining resources amidst continual threats. Anxiety, grief, and anger were constant companions. Yet resilience and loyalty were cultivated alongside them. Children were indoctrinated into the clan's sense of justice, learning that the preservation of honor and survival were inseparable. Adolescents trained in combat learned the arts of tracking and strategy, and absorbed the stories of past feuds as cautionary tales. Life in the Highlands demanded not only physical strength, but also emotional fortitude and strategic thinking. Feuds also influenced alliances, marriages, and political maneuvering. Clans often sought to secure peace or gain advantage through intermarriage, forming bonds with neighbors or even distant families. Diplomacy, negotiation, and the strategic use of kinship ties were essential tools in a landscape dominated by mistrust and vengeance. A well-timed alliance could avert disaster, while a misstep might spark a bloody confrontation. Leaders who understood the delicate balance between loyalty, honor, and pragmatism were more likely to ensure their clan's survival in an unpredictable world. Yet feuds were not purely destructive. They reinforced the cohesion and identity of clans, compelling members to act with loyalty and bravery. The shared experience of defending one's kin, enduring hardship, and navigating threats created unbreakable bonds and a profound sense of belonging. Stories of valor, cunning, and endurance became part of the clan's heritage, celebrated and retold for generations. In this way, the feuds shaped not only the immediate lives of Highlanders, but also their collective memory and cultural identity. Seasonal cycles intertwined with feuds, influencing both the timing and nature of conflict. Spring and summer, when travel and resources were more favorable, were often the seasons for raids and skirmishes. Winter, with its harsh conditions, saw fewer large-scale confrontations, but clandestine acts of revenge or preparation for future campaigns continued. The natural world dictated strategy as much as human ambition, reminding clans that survival depended on respecting both the land and the social codes that governed behavior. Amid this tension, life continued, Villages hummed with activity between raids, children played in fields, artisans crafted tools, and families tended to livestock and crops. Music, storytelling, and communal gatherings offered moments of respite, a brief reprieve from the constant vigilance demanded by the feuding landscape. Even in a world dominated by conflict, there were pockets of joy, camaraderie, and human connection. Small reminders that life persisted, even in the shadow of danger. As night fell, and the Highlands were shrouded in mist and shadow, the echoes of feuds lingered in the quiet. Fires burned in isolated homes, and the distant howl of wolves blended with the soft wind through the heather. The land itself seemed to hold the memory of countless clashes, a silent witness to centuries of loyalty, betrayal, and resilience. Those who lived amid these tensions developed a profound understanding of the fragile balance between honor and survival, recognizing that the bonds of kinship could be both a source of strength and a catalyst for conflict. In contemplating the endless cycle of clan feuds, one begins to understand the complexity of Highland life. Violence and loyalty were inseparable. Survival required both vigilance and courage, as well as an acute awareness of history, alliances, and the natural environment. The feuds left their mark not only on the landscape, but on the hearts and minds of the people, shaping values, identity, and culture. To live in medieval Scotland was to navigate a world where honor demanded action, kinship demanded loyalty, and the consequences of every choice could reverberate for generations. As the sun rose over the craggy peaks of the Scottish Highlands, the role of the clan chief came sharply into focus. To lead a clan in medieval Scotland was not a matter of mere title. It was a responsibility that encompassed every aspect of life, from defense and justice to diplomacy and survival. Chiefs were the living embodiment of their clan's honor, the guardians of its lands, and the ultimate arbiters of both life and death. The weight of this responsibility pressed heavily on their shoulders, shaping their decisions, their relationships, and the very culture of the Highlands. A clan chief was more than a warrior or landowner. He was a judge, responsible for mediating disputes, punishing transgressions, and maintaining order within the clan. Every member, from the youngest child to the oldest elder, relied on the chief to uphold fairness, enforce loyalty, and protect the collective interests of the group. This sense of duty required wisdom, courage, and an intimate understanding of both human nature and the complex social dynamics of the Highlands. A misjudgment could provoke internal strife, weaken the clan's cohesion, or invite attacks from rival families. The chief's authority extended beyond the borders of his own lands. Alliances and rivalries shaped every decision, from marriage arrangements to strategic battles. Chiefs negotiated with neighboring clans, sometimes forging bonds of friendship, other times navigating tense truces designed to prevent open conflict. In a world where political power was fragmented and the crown's influence limited, the chief's skill in diplomacy could mean the difference between prosperity and devastation. Respect was earned through action, not words. A weak or indecisive leader risked losing the loyalty of his people, and with it, the security of the entire clan. Leadership in the Highlands was deeply intertwined with the notion of honor. A chief was expected to act with integrity, courage, and prudence, but the code of honor was both a guide and a constraint. To maintain his standing, a chief had to demonstrate martial skill, settle disputes equitably, and protect his clan from external threats. Failure in any of these areas could undermine his authority, sparking dissent and opening the door for rivals to challenge his position. Chiefs were constantly aware that every decision carried consequences, both immediate and far-reaching, and that their actions were closely scrutinized by allies and enemies alike. The responsibilities of a chief extended into matters of survival, ensuring that the clan had sufficient food, shelter, and resources required strategic planning and careful management of labor and livestock. Agricultural production depended on seasonal cycles, weather patterns, and the availability of labor, while raids and warfare could disrupt supply lines and threaten the clan's sustenance. Chiefs often had to balance short-term survival with long-term planning, making difficult choices that could affect generations. Protecting the clan's territory from intruders, whether rival clans or opportunistic forces, demanded vigilance, foresight, and the ability to inspire and organize warriors. Chiefs were also the keepers of tradition and culture. They presided over ceremonies, religious observances, and communal gatherings, reinforcing a sense of identity and continuity. Oral history and folklore were tools of leadership, as well as entertainment, preserving the deeds of ancestors and teaching younger generations the values of bravery, loyalty, and wisdom. In a society where literacy was rare and written records scarce, the chief's knowledge of history, laws, and customs was vital for maintaining cohesion and ensuring that the clan's legacy endured. The psychological burden of leadership was profound. Chiefs were often isolated figures, bearing the weight of countless lives and decisions. They had to navigate the delicate balance between authority and empathy, justice and pragmatism. While respected and revered, they also faced constant threats, external and internal, that could undermine their rule or endanger their people. Trust was a precious commodity, yet even the most loyal clansmen might be tempted by ambition, fear, or resentment. Chiefs needed not only martial and political skill, but also emotional resilience, patience, and a capacity for foresight. In addition to these domestic and political responsibilities, chiefs were often expected to lead in warfare. Battles were not mere contests of strength, but strategic engagements requiring careful planning, intelligence gathering, and tactical acumen. A chief's reputation was inseparable from his performance in combat. Acts of bravery or strategic brilliance could elevate the clan's standing, while failure could invite humiliation or attack. Even in times of peace, the threat of war loomed, demanding constant preparation and vigilance. The role of the chief also encompassed moral leadership. They were expected to enforce laws and customs, mediate disputes, and ensure that justice was upheld. Punishments for crimes varied, but they were rarely arbitrary. Chiefs had to balance the needs of the individual, the family, and the clan as a whole. Excessive harshness could breed resentment and rebellion, while leniency might be interpreted as weakness. Wise chiefs maintained equilibrium, administering justice in a way that reinforced authority, protected the vulnerable, and preserved the clan's cohesion. Despite the enormous responsibilities, chiefs were not immune to the human experiences of doubt, fear, and grief. They mourned lost kin, faced the anxiety of impending attacks, and struggled with decisions that could have life or death consequences. Yet their resilience, courage, and ability to inspire loyalty made them central figures in a world defined by hardship and unpredictability. A chief who embodied strength, wisdom, and fairness could transform the fortunes of his people, ensuring that they endured and prospered even amidst adversity. Leadership in medieval Scotland was, therefore, an intricate tapestry of power, responsibility, and humanity. It required a balance of military skill, political acumen, moral judgment, and emotional intelligence. Chiefs were guardians, warriors, judges, and diplomats. Each action weighed against the welfare of the clan and the preservation of honor. Their decisions shaped not only the present, but also the future, influencing the survival, identity, and legacy of generations. To understand a chief's life is to understand the very fabric of Highland society, a world where loyalty and duty intersected with danger and ambition, and where the weight of leadership was both a privilege and a profound burden. As the day faded and the Highlands were bathed in the warm hues of sunset, the figure of the chief stood as a symbol of resilience and dedication. The land, rugged and unforgiving, mirrored the challenges he faced. Yet through wisdom, courage, and unwavering commitment, he guided his people, ensuring that the clan endured, thrived, and maintained its honor amidst the trials of a turbulent and beautiful Scotland.